George himself here is very special for us today. So I'm glad you guys can make it. I'm very sorry that it's a little bit tight. I wanted to fit as much people as I think could because I want to share this opportunity to work with you all. But without further ado, I'm going to let the man of the hour speak himself, Mr. George Farmer.
Hi everyone, thanks for that lovely welcome.
Anytime.
It's really special for me to be here today. I've never been to Toronto before, so that's cool. Thank you, Vince, for hosting me. And I've never been to a aquascaping store so beautiful in Canada.
I appreciate that.
It's a real gem, and I'm honestly really pleasantly surprised. I've seen pictures online, but
Yeah.
you never do it justice. Yeah, and there's a good point, you know, there's a little bit of a lesson there. And we can go online and we can get inspired by Instagram and Facebook and books and IUPLC entries and all of this. But my hope for you guys today is that you will be inspired in a different way maybe, because hopefully you might connect with something in a bit of a deeper way after this, I reckon. That's my aim. Because a lot of you can aquascape already, a lot of you understand the basics of aquascaping already. So a lot of the things we'll talk about today practically won't come as much of a surprise to you potentially. I'll tell you what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, so you'll learn the practicalities of aquascaping. But today I want to go more into why we aquascape, not just how to aquascape, because I think there's actually something really special about aquascaping that you can't get across on social media. So I'm very grateful to be in this physical presence of everyone and hopefully spread some new aquascaping awareness to you. Is that okay with everyone?
Perfect.
Cool. So welcome to the viewers. Is it all looking good? Just watch out for trolls and stuff. Yeah, so today we're going to scape this beautiful Awase scaper line. Is it a 90?
It's a 90, yeah.
So it measures around 3 foot by 18 inches by 18 inches, holds about 50, 60 gallons.
48, yeah.
48 gallons, give or take. Featuring Red Colander version 2.0. Where's Algae King? Where's my mate? There he is, thank you so much. And I want to tell you a story. You like stories, don't we?
We all love stories.
I'm going to tell you a story about this Red Colander. The reason I've got this Red Colander is because my friend Algae King there, Algae King, sorry. Is it Algae or Algae? Algae.
Tomatoes models, right?
We'll stick with English algae. So I had another Red Colander previous to this, and I actually had it for about 20 years, and it's featured on Algae King's t-shirt there. And it became my kind of brand, it became kind of part of my kind of brand identity, if you like. I can't believe I just did that, sorry. And I thought, as I was kind of progressing with my career in aquascaping, I started to feel attached to things which I shouldn't be. So I kind of felt attached to this Red Colander. And I thought I don't need any attachments anymore. So I passed it on. I passed it on like a baton to Alex and Ryan, you know, Aquascapes and Ryan Knoll. And they're like the next generation in my mind of aquascapers and content creators. And that was quite a symbolic, gesture, you know, as the next phase in my career. And then Algae King comes along and gives me a new one. So I've got another attachment now. So cheers. Anyway, little story
For
about
another 20 years.
about colanders. But they are, in all seriousness, they are great for like cleaning strawberries. But also what you can do is when you're filling up your aquarium's maintenance, many of you already know you can use a colander to disperse the water. So it does have functional value as well as great storytelling abilities. Thank you. Okay, back to aquariums. Thank you for the prompt. But that is a good point. Actually, every half an hour or so, we are aware of the close proximity, and you know it's not entirely physically comfortable in here. So every 30 minutes or so, if anyone needs a break before that, please just let us know. We can all stand up, have a little stretch outside, do some compulsory PT maybe, maybe some yoga. But yeah, we'll have a break. And then if people would just want to still sit and chat, we can do that for 5 minutes while everyone else has a thing. So we want everyone to be physically comfortable as well as emotionally and spiritually comfortable as well. Okay. Good, let's start some smoking. Right, we'll talk about the setup, shall we? Because that's kind of my job as a Wise ambassador. This is my Wise aquarium. Beautiful, rimless, low iron glass, and we like low iron because it means you can see through it better. The regular float glass has a dark green tinge when you look down the sides, when you do probably notice that on older style aquariums. But the rimless aquarium is fantastic for aquascaping. We can have, like you see here, we can have hardscape plants coming out the surface. We can look into the aquarium, so it gives us a new perspective, literally. So yeah, rimless tanks absolutely perfect for aquascaping, but we do need to bear in mind there are some limitations. You know, you can't stock certain fish that might want to jump out. So do your research. You will be getting more evaporation. You know, depending on the difference between ambient temperature and your water temperature, that can really, you know, can evaporate really quite quickly. If you have hard water, when the water evaporates, you tend to get this hard water deposit build up. So there are, you know, it's not perfect, but for aquascaping, where we're focused on the aesthetics, it's the best thing we've got right now. Okay, we're complementing the kind of minimalist nature by using the glass inlet and outlet here. You know, hopefully they become almost invisible in the aquascape. You know, you want to be focusing what's in the aquarium and not distracted by ugly equipment. So that's why we use the glass. But there was a Biomaster filter down here with the pre-filter, quick release, absolute game changer. And then also with the new Scapeline cabinets, got this really cool function where you can slide out your filter to maintain the pre-filter really easily. Got these really cool magnets built into the doors to store your tools as well. Really secure. And also, which I think is a really cool feature that you don't see in other cabinets that are designed for aquascaping, you've got these removable magnetic slots here where you can thread your cable, your pipes through the side of the aquarium. And these are all configurable, and they've got magnets in too, so it makes it really easy to position. So they've really thought about, you know, the design, the construction, all great quality materials, and yeah, just a really high-end premium system. I mean, it's not cheap, but you know, we pay for luxury, basically. Chihiros lighting. This is the Vivid 2, is it? Tom? So this is the Vivid.
Yes, that's a Vivid 2.
Vivid 2. This is controllable via an app, I believe. You've got the shades on there as well, so hopefully you guys aren't getting blinded. Is that alright? Yeah. It's bright, isn't it? Get suntan. So yeah, a really beautiful system, and pressurised CO2 as well. So absolutely everything you need to create the most amazing aquascape possible, because you're not limited by any equipment. You know, you've got powerful lighting, good CO2 injection, good filtration and circulation with the filters. We're using good substrate to feed the plant roots, good liquid fertilisers. I don't know what you guys use, but there's so many great ones out there now. You know, we're really living in a golden age of aquascaping, really, where all this equipment is so readily available. You know, and looking around me now, you've got some of the best equipment in the world in here. You know, and yeah, it's really great to see, seriously. So there's kind of, if you've got the money, of course this is not a cheap system, but there's no excuse now if you're willing to invest the time and energy and financing, of course, into something like this. You're only then limited by your imagination to what you can create. You know, you can see these beautiful competition level aquascapes out there. There's nothing to stop you achieving that. You know, the methods are out there. Everything's public knowledge now. There's no hiding. All these techniques and how they create this sense of depth, these crazy tunnels, and it's all out there. You know, you're only limited by the amount of effort and energy you want to put into it. And of course, finances. It's not cheap, obviously. So just something to think about if you want to take your aquascaping to the next level. You know, I know there's quite a few experienced guys here and some less experienced, but you know, if you want to invest in a good system, you're not limited by anything, only by what's in here, then this is the kind of system you should be looking at getting. Well, any questions on the actual hardware or kit? I know there's quite a lot of stuff to unpack there, literally.
I think you nailed it.
Yeah, done it a few times, mate. I think this is like my 750th video, it's pretty crazy. So, yeah, beautiful equipment, and we're going to create a beautiful aquascape. And can anyone guess what fish are going to go in here? You'll never guess. Well, a few people might guess. You can guess. But if you could guess, like, what would I choose the least to go in here? Maybe. No, discus. Right. And we've all probably, some of you who watch my channel will be aware of my relationship with discus. So it's a challenge for me today to create a beautiful aquascape here for discus, and I am up for the challenge. I'm relishing the challenge. And we'll talk about why I found them challenging in my own aquariums, but hopefully how we can use lessons from those challenges, transfer them into opportunities for this store to have the most amazing planted discus aquascape. That's the challenge. Did we accept the challenge?
Yes.
Yeah.
Heck yes.
So discus are a difficult fish to keep in a plant aquarium, generally speaking, and the reasons for that are discus like water very warm, warmer than what most plants prefer. So you're at starting challenge right there in the off. So discus probably aren't comfortable, the strength of discus which we're keeping aren't comfortable with anything less than 28 degrees C, 82 Fahrenheit, possibly a tiny bit less. But 28 degrees Celsius, 82 Fahrenheit, for the vast majority of aquarium plants, is at the upper end of what they're comfortable with, okay? Most plants will grow well with that and warmer, but you need to bear in mind a lot of factors. So the first thing with you guys might know already, but the warmer the water, the warmer that any living thing is, the quicker the metabolic processes of that living thing. Okay? Absolutely all living things pretty much on this planet are driven by the metabolic rate of the temperature. Okay? And it's not a smooth curve, you know, as the temperature goes up. It's like exponential. Right? So as you get warmer and warmer, things like oxygen availability drops down, carbon dioxide ability drops down, the fish respiration rate goes up, so the fish needs more oxygen. But these things are going down. So you're in a kind of almost like a vicious cycle. Sounds like terrible, doesn't it? Am I painting a really bad picture about warm water and discus?
Sounds like the desert.
Yeah, exactly. So we're struggling because, you know, the fish wants more oxygen, but there isn't so much oxygen because the oxygen availability in water goes down as the temperature goes up. So what do? Well, we can have plants. That's great. And plants produce oxygen, which is great. They consume CO2, which is great. They consume ammonia, which is great because what's happening is discus, because they're messy eaters as well, they like very protein-rich diet. Denka discus have this exclusive kind of beef part mix, which is super rich in protein. Protein is like the prerequisite to ammonia production. So that combined with all the metabolic rates going up, the ammonia production is going up. So we're in a real sticky situation, aren't we? Yeah. So what do? Well, good news, we've got powerful filters now, okay? And we can position, you know, we can position them so we're agitating the surface a bit more, so that's going to drive more oxygen into the water just through that gaseous exchange with the air. We can focus really heavily on decent plant growth, and we can choose appropriate plants that tolerate or at least grow fairly well, not just survive but thrive hopefully in a warmer aquarium. Things like Econodoras, Cryptocorini, Anubias, maybe Marcosaurum, Tropica Ferns, all the plants that I love actually, so that's good. So these are all options, okay? But we need to be mindful of if we want to keep any living thing in our care, we need to give it the best home that we can for that. So, you know, whether it's keeping a dog, a cat, you know, discus, be mindful of that environment that you're creating for it, because we have a responsibility as pet keepers, as animal lovers, as whatever we like to call ourselves. You know, we have a responsibility, I think, to give these living entities the best care possible. You know, they're completely dependent on us, aren't they? And it's really unfair to kind of buy an animal knowing you can't give it the best. So, you know, we need to create the best environment we can for these discus in here. And interestingly, I learned a lot of lessons about keeping discus with my ORZ Highline 400. And one of the biggest lessons I learned is that they adapt very quickly to their environment in terms of changing their body plan. And with it, I don't know if you guys are aware, but the Aquascape Highline 400 has a completely black background. It's black. It's actually black glass. And I like to use aquarium soil, this pelletized product, which is very dark brown, to grow my plants with. So I did, completely dark brown soil, imagine a completely black background, and then put the fish in. They looked great for a few weeks, and then they gradually got darker and darker and darker. And it took me ages realising, and then a few people DMing me. I was getting still conflicting advice from so-called experts, and I just thought, well, I'm just going to try a couple of things. And one of the first things I did was take all the plants out and put like a white sand on the bottom. And I kid you not, within half an hour, those fish went from like a dark purple, like really dark. Some of you may have seen the photos or videos. Really, really, really dark. Arguably still healthy and feeding and all the rest of it. But the colour just made them look sick. They were just dark. So within 30 minutes, an hour, these fish went pop, boom, like from dark purple to like a bright, brilliant cobalt azure blue with contrasting with beautiful orange reds. It was just insane, the difference within like literally, I'd say 30 minutes to 2 minutes. And I just thought, all this time I've been like worrying about CO2, meds, oxygen levels, all these kind of variables that are going around. And all it was the fish adapting to their environment in terms of the colour around them. So, good news, we've got a light ground here, so complete antithesis of a black background. And then we are going to use some soil in the back for the plants. We're actually going to use some pale, naturalistic kind of sands and graggles in the front there. And tall plants in the back, that's going to encourage the fish to come forward. And then they'll see this pale substrate beneath them, but this pale background is really going to boost those fish colours. Okay, so a lesson there in discus and how to kind of keep the water quality high. That's the most important thing. Going back to the animal welfare, we need to make sure those fish are living in that healthy environment, and we're responsible for that. So we've got a big filter on there. The guys, I'm sure, will be doing 2-3 water changes on this every week. If you're not prepared to do that, then please don't keep discus in here, basically. One of the reasons we like to keep the open substrate at the front is because that food is so rich in nutrients. If you have, say, a carpeting plant, I think we originally were talking about carpeting plant, and the issue there, some of you can already tell where we're going with this, that decomposing food is just going to sit there stagnant amongst that carpeting plant. And unless you've got like a decent group of boys and shrimp or whatever, that's just going to decompose and cause water quality issues. So if we actually have an open area, we can visibly siphon off any uneaten food almost straight away. I would be keeping like a little bucket in there, a little length of hose, and just keep an eye after 20 minutes or so after feeding, and just siphon away. If you get in the habit of doing that, it has to become a habit, otherwise you'll never do it. Okay, so just train yourself to do it 2-3 times a day, and then it's all about micro maintenance, right? It's not waiting like a full week of doing zero maintenance and then spending 4 hours maintaining a tank. Ideally, I love it. Ideally, just doing a couple of minutes here and there every day. And I know you've got a lot to do, but maybe you block in sessions like an hour and do micro maintenance on all the tanks. And if you do that once a day, you probably don't need to do those massive big maintenance sessions, because by that point things have gotten a little bit out of hand, isn't it? So I know I'm rambling and stuff, but that's what I do. But yes, stuff about maintenance, stuff about choosing the right environment for your fish, making sure the fish that you're keeping should be the primary driver of the aquascape and the system around it. I'm guilty of it myself. I used to just see the fish as almost just floating commodities. These are just little bits of paint strokes to add extra aesthetic value to my art. That's kind of how I was perceiving these. But now, deeper connection with nature, and I fundamentally and intrinsically understand this connection with nature that we all have. And if we've made that decision to keep these living things, got a responsibility to do our best for them. Yeah? So, this is cool, isn't it? How can everyone look? There's Alex Feller and Vince over there. They did a collaboration and created this between them. So, great job. Good. Any questions so far? No? Are we ready for a little break yet? Or got another 10 minutes or so?
Yeah, we can do another 10 minutes and take a break.
Everyone comfortable with another 10 minutes?
And just turn down the AC even more, so it should cool up a little bit.
Don't make me take the top off.
I already saw you once during our
Well, you get up and have a top
see it
off.
again.
Can't do that, I'm not in front of an oasis tank. Get told off again. Yes, let's talk about Hardscape. Let's talk about Hardscape. Nice and chill for 10 minutes.
If you want a towel to dry it off, that's your...
Yeah. We'll do that in the break though.
Okay,
So
cool.
we don't need to drift on water very So Hardscape, if you've watched any of my videos, you'll know exactly what I'm going to say now. It's the same thing over and over again, but it's really important. Hardscape is like the backbone of the aquascape. You know, it's like the spine and the ribs, and you know, compare it to a human being. You know, the hardscape is the skeleton, you know, the plants are like the flesh, and the water is like the blood. Yeah. So there's a good metaphor for you. Or an aquascape, you can compare it to a painting. You know, the aquarium itself is the canvas. You know, the hardscape is the that main kind of outline of the drawing, and then you have your paint strokes of the plants. You know. So the lesson there is that when you understand any kind of artistic pursuit enough, if you've practiced it enough, and there's probably some musicians out there, or artists, or whatever your kind of creativity output, if you've done it for enough time, you know, I think they say 10,000 hours is a good starting point, you become so enmeshed in that discipline, you can talk about it in different ways, and it becomes like a new language. So this is how I am now with aquascaping, and hopefully I can communicate these. Sometimes they can be esoteric concepts, but using aquascaping as a language to communicate some bigger ideas and make people a bit more aware of stuff that's going on. Okay? So yeah, it's a how to aquascape workshop, but it's something a bit more connected. So hardscape. Wow, went off on a tangent there about hardscape, didn't I? It's the backbone of the layout, and I was talking about metaphors, wasn't I? So we can use the hardscape is very important for the aquascape. Normally it's the driving point of where everything comes from. So if we really spend a lot of time and energy choosing the right hardscape, you know, making sure we've got big enough pieces, you know, a real big common beginner mistake is to just use small pieces, and you don't get enough height in particular. You know, ideally you want this is a rule of thumb, you know, a lot of the tips of their hardscape should be around 2/3 of the way up the tank. Or if you want to go, you know, even crazier, you can actually have deliberate stuff coming out, but the whole kind of main focal area is 2/3 of the way along here. And this is a really good basic compositional guideline. You know, most people have heard of the rule of thirds on your phones. They've probably got the grid. So, you know, top tip when you're taking photos with your phone of anything, portraits or landscapes or whatever, if you align those intersections of the grid with your focal point, whether it's a human eye, a flower petal, you know, whatever, if you line that up with the intersection of any of those rule of thirds points, you're going to get a really nicely, easily, well-composed photo. And we can use that in aquascaping. So we want to put our focal points normally either 1/3 of the way up, 2/3 of the way up, or 1/3 of the way along, or 2/3 of the way along. And then where these lines intersect, that's like the magic area where ideally your focal point might want to be. It's not a rule that you have to follow, it's just a very easy way to get a good aesthetic balance in your aquascapes. You know, you can use that in any area, whether it's you know, you're a monster fish keeper, you know, you probably don't have much substrate and stuff like that, but you probably have a piece of decor. It might look better if you just moved it like by 1/3. You know what I mean? It's like just little tips like that that you can use in everyday life. Good. Hardscape. Choosing materials is important. We've got a beautiful collection of hardscape here. Different types of wood, different types of rocks. It's a temptation to kind of mix stuff together, but in general, you want to stick to the same kind of material in the Aquascape. So don't normally mix wood types up. There are exceptions, and the same with rocks. We normally stick to the same rock. But going beyond, kind of, especially with rocks, when you position the rocks, we'll talk more about that in more detail after the break. But you can, even when you buy a certain type of rock, let's say, you guys have photo stone over here. What do you call it? Elderly stone, ancient stone?
Sometimes, yeah.
Well, it's Sirius stone or whatever.
Sirius. We have tons of Sirius.
Right? Even in that kind of small collection of stones, you'll get different kind of families of stone. Some will have more of a bluey sheen, some will have more grey, some will have certain striations, and normally you can fit them into different kind of families of the same type of stone. So I'll show you some examples later, but just something to think about in a different way. When you're collecting your hardscape, there's another good thing, is just like deliberately hoarding art if you've got room. I know it's expensive and stuff to live and buy big places, but if you've got somewhere to hoard hardscape. Do you hoard your hardscape?
Just a bit.
Yeah. I've got a 2-bedroom flat, one of them is dedicated to hardscape. But yeah, you can hoard it, and then this gives you more opportunities for new aquascapes, and hopefully, if you're not already an avid aquascaper, you're already thinking about what you want to create next, because it's infinitely joyous, just like literally an infinite variation of things that you can create with aquascaping. And hardscape is the start of that process. And we're going to do that after the break. Cheers.
I just want to actually go back on the competition point that you're talking about.
Okay.
Do you yourself follow the golden ratio at all, or not really?
Only accidentally, I just don't think about it.
I hear
Do
you.
what I do.
Yeah, whatever
If
looks
it
good.
fits, then it fits. I used to have to intellectually kind of understand the golden ratio and then do it. But once you do start on the bike, once you do it, naturally you don't need to think about it.
I hear you.
Charlie, I have a question for you. So, regarding your hardscape, especially when you're looking at the kind of fish you want to use, do you limit yourself based on the biology of the fish, the habitat where it comes from, to select certain hardscape as the other? For example, the discus, from where it comes from, places like Syria, which will raise.
Yeah. It's an interesting one, especially with discus, because ironically the discus that we're keeping is Temper discus. And you mentioned the Syria, which is going to rain hardness, but actually they like water really hard. So this is a special German breed that have been selectively bred to be very hard water, to thrive in hard water. So I think as long as you choose the decor appropriately, to match the water chemistry. So don't keep soft water fish in a hardscape, maybe it's going to increase, and vice versa. Just do your research. Also be mindful that a little bit of hardness increase from the rocks isn't necessarily a bad thing sometimes, especially if you're doing big, big water changes every week, which most aquascapers are, changing half the water. So even a little bit of creep of GH is okay. And actually, if you think about what GH is, it's actually sort of magnesium, calcium, which is going to feed the plants as well. So it's not all bad. It's just when people get lazy and just let the GH build up because they've been too lazy to do the water changes. So a really good lesson there is just do frequent water changes, and that will stabilise the water chemistry if you do have any external factors influencing. Yeah, that makes sense. Good. Good. I need a fresh air break, so let's say cheerio. Oh, got another.
Anyone else have any questions before we take a little intermission? No, we're all good. Good, cool. Yeah, we can open the door.
Just leave it running.
10 minutes.
Put it in front of Aquascape. Put it in front of Aquascape.
No way. Yeah, so just behind the TV there. Oh, thank you.
Not really, but today I am. Yeah, man. Pull it off.
Yeah, man, good. How are you?
Thank you.
time to step outside.
Most, you know?
Hey George, would love to get your opinion.
Just a second.
I'll come back during the break. Okay, my turn. Is it cool if I come through the storage?
Cool.
Cool if I come
Right.
I'd love to get your opinion on.
So go downstairs. There's
It's completely overrun by the crystal works at this point. But it's like this, you know, it's after watching all the videos and everything, you're like, oh, it shouldn't matter that much, and you kind of, and lesson learned is that don't trust the shrimp. They'll always mess up the same way. Yeah. So it's like almost impossible to keep it out. And I guess this is when like you realize, you need to start using filter wool and stuff like that.
Yeah, or just do a complete soil.
We have
Oh yeah, just remove it. Yeah.
Just
Like the problem is there's like when I made it, like I kind of like put some soil deliberately underneath so that some of the plants could feed off it.
yeah.
So and so because of that, like there's always some and the streams keep pulling it out. Yeah. So
It's lovely though. Lovely touches to like, get rid of it, put soil all the way across,
yeah,
and then let this go wild.
there's like
Is it
a little over.
is it, or-
that's actually Unicus repens.
Is it really? Oh, it's great, yeah.
So Unicus repens, if you keep trimming it while it forms the like you know the little nose, you keep trimming it and just planting it back in. So that way it stays like tiny, and it gives you a beautiful like impression of wild, like taller grass compared to in the background if you have like hair grass.
Yeah, yeah.
So in fact that's what I'm planning on doing tomorrow as well.
Yeah. What's this? This is Eucalyptus.
Yeah, so they're clearly, because I have to keep the flow very low for the fish that I have, the chili explorers and so on. Clearly it shows the carbon dioxide, that's where this is growing. And it's my like scape for like, this is what I use for my like, actually the IPLC entry, completely gone. Because like the shrimp keep pulling it out, there's not enough CO2. So yeah, like, but luckily I was able to at least get enough of an angle to give me like at least a decent carpet for the competition. Yeah. But then afterwards it's gone. So
It's good though. Yeah, okay.
yeah, thanks. Yeah. So it was one of those things where like I'm more like of an orchid and terrestrial plant grower, like carnivorous plants and stuff. So for me it's like I was always like loved Adam Pascal's scapes. So I was like, I kind of wanted to do some of the videos that she showed of his like gallery, like with the plants kind of coming out and all that. So I was like, okay, I gotta do that. So
Yeah, that's right, man.
yeah, thanks.
I'm just gonna get some fresh
Yeah,
air.
yeah.
Yeah, cheers, mate.
Maybe 2 weeks. And one of the originators was yeah. So seemed to think Hamilton on the boys or something.
Back in 5 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think George uses it much in his videos recently. Been watching him skate for years. And so, yeah, I was pretty excited that he was coming, and then I figured, you know what, I haven't seen it in a while, so I didn't know where it went. I didn't know that he were gifted it. Yeah, I didn't know that. But did it? Well, the thing was, I figured this one would be good for him because he's traveling so much and it's actually full. Right? So it's not.
She can afford it in this next video.
Yeah.
I'll know where it came from.
Yeah, it's just like to me, I guess the color has different reasons, different meanings to different people. For me, it's always been, you know, I kind of like what it was. It's like, you know, you don't need to get fancy with stuff. you go to the kitchen, get the boom, yeah, it works. So I think for me that kind of helped me to get into the confidence. Well, yeah, no fancy stuff. Oh yeah, yeah. That's what I always get. No need fancy brush or anything like that. That's a good question. Dr. Burren?
Hey,
That's a good question.
yeah, like I mean, you're kind of, especially now, like with the rummy nose, right?
Oh yeah.
The Asian rummy nose, they're like I remember the Green Aqua video. Those guys were they put it in their like competition tank,
Yeah.
and they apparently had to like basically said it's like they had to take it out because or if they died because their water is our water, and they're using like inert mostly. I think they were using photostone, but I don't think it's like serum and it weighs as much. Yeah,
It's not
so, yeah.
better than zero.
And also what you would see is like, especially with the tank that I made it, the first time pure Aquascape, the pH drops crazy. I think these guys, the Romulans, like, don't like it.
They need water a little more.
Yeah, because like if you, I kind of had to read up on the, what was that website? I think seriouslyfish.com or something. Like a beautiful website, like actual like wild data on like what the habitat is like. So they were basically saying like the Lake Italy very has a lot of limestone. So
So isn't Lake Econodora also where the Asian rumminose?
yeah,
That's where
that's where they're.
that's where they're from. Okay. Are you talking about the Asian rumminose or just the regular rumminose?
Asian.
Asian rumminose. Yeah.
Like those have become kind of like my favorite fish.
Yeah, I love
so,
them. I love them.
yeah, so like right now, that's the ones in my 60F.
Yeah.
So I, yeah,
I had a few of them jump.
okay.
So if it's in a net, I was always wondering if it's maybe a little too shallow.
It is. Like
But it's temporary.
I literally have to like, you know, tiptoe around it because these guys are so skittish. And but thankfully, like it's not the world. Yeah, it's that is actually the ADA gravel. Yeah, so what I actually ended up doing is at the back of my thing, you can't actually see it. Behind that lava rock, there's a series. So I kind of purposely put it there to like buffer the pH. And also, this was meant to be a temporary tank until like I could put them in a bigger tank and then use it. So the soil I used in here was the Silicone. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So that's in it. So basically, and this is tap water, so 150 pH. I've had success basically with their tank.
Your tap water is 150.
Yeah, 150, 160.
Yeah, I think mine was 170.
Oh, yeah, it is around. Yeah, and then the pH is so these things, like I've had issues long term.
Readjust there, move my
So
car a little bit
these guys
from one
are
spot to
being-
the other.
I think it has to do with the daylight.
That's good. Yeah.
Honestly,
Pretty
sometimes I
taken
go
earlier, so I was like, alright, I'll
or
probably
changing water on that tank,
3 hours
just
or whatever.
seriously rough, no substitution.
Every break,
He
you know,
goes
it's
up
changed.
to like 300, 400. Like that's one thing I'm gonna learn.
All right, thanks for staying with us. We're going to resume shortly. Vince, my cameraman, is going to help, hopefully.
I'm gonna strap it to myself. Oh, really is. I'm loving how much plants and everything there. George, do you want me to bring the little trolley for all the tools closer to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm done. See you later.
There you go, George. I'm gonna put it. Should we put it behind you? You think?
Yeah, I tend to move around, so.
Yeah.
Is that in your way then? Sorry, I just Okay, we're getting everyone in. Don't you going to miss out on the most exciting bit, the Hardscape? So, what type of wood is this? You know?
Eucalyptus. Eucalyptus.
Eucalyptus wood. Is that what the koala bears eat?
Yes. Happy koala bear. Happy scapers.
Okay, so this is eucalyptus wood. I'm using several pieces, and the idea is because discus are body shaped, they're quite round, so they're very compared with most fish, which are elongated, and that suits like a horizontal kind of flowing aquascape. Discus are relatively tall, so what I'm trying to do with the hardscape is kind of reflect that and have quite tall, kind of vertically dominated hardscape, so it kind of reflects the fish aspect ratio. So this is something else to think about with our aquascapes in terms of not just where we position our focal points, you know, red plants and stuff like this, but how the components of the aquascape actually suit the fish, you know, visually, but also make sure they're not going to have too many sharp edges where the fish might bite themselves, etc.
Hello. Are you, in my experience with eucalyptus wood, it uses a lot of tannins. Are you planning to have kind of darker water?
That's a really good point. There would be no problem with that if we wanted to have a slightly kind of orangey tinge. Might look quite nice. I'm not sure what colours the discus are.
They're like blue turquoise.
All the same colour?
Yeah.
Nice. So what we could deliberately, I mean, just use your own aesthetic sensibility, see how tannin stained the water gets with eucalyptus wood, and you could arguably enjoy a kind of slight tannin stained aquascape because it might make the colours pop a bit more. That's right. There's something to think about.
I know they do that for the neon Tetras, cardinals, and
Yeah.
neons.
They love the black water. Yeah. But there are man-made kind of variety, you know, just don't feel that much that colour more. So it might look a bit weird because you're trying to go for this naturalistic, biotope look with the water. But an unnatural coloured fish, so it's a bit of a mismatch there. But it's all down to your own aesthetic, your own thing. So, but a really good talking point, thank you. Okay, let's move on. This is the most dominant piece in terms of its vertical nature. So you can see I've already put it a third of the way along, roughly across there. So we'll keep that there for now. Then we'll go for another dominant vertical piece. Is this the eucalyptus as well, or is this a different variety?
I think it's manzanita. I gotta look at the tag.
It's got like a nice cool hollow there.
Yeah.
But we're going vertical, so this is going to, sorry for the water drippage. So again, we're going to offset that by using the rule of thirds again. So we'll go back there. Now we've got a little bit of symmetry there. It's okay because this is taller. This is a bit more kind of complex, so it's kind of okay for now. Okay. Now you can see I'm taking this away and it's all floating, so we need to bear that in mind when we're filling with water. So we do need to secure the wood down somehow, and we will do that, and I'll show you exactly how we do that in a bit. Now this is the interesting bit. This is where we've got lots of different ways that we can lay these extra pieces of wood, hopefully to create a coherent, well-balanced layout that looks kind of quite natural. We can hopefully use these branches or these roots, they're kind of curled. You can see that there, kind of curled around, so we can hopefully use that curling to our advantage and kind of deliberately maybe meet up so we have this coherent kind of flow, if that makes sense. So let's see how we can go. So in my mind that might look quite good there. Sometimes I literally forget, like there's 30 people watching. I might go into my own little flow state. Oh, there's people I can, yeah. So if I go quiet, that's why I'm not being rude. But can you see, hopefully, what I'm trying to achieve? There's this beautiful flowing piece of wood here. I'm trying to get it to kind of match up maybe with this one here. But we're kind of really far forward here, so. And then you can just fiddle around with words, like rotate it in all angles and see, what's the most interesting side that you're going to be, exposed to. Okay, we can fix that in a minute. And then we've got this beautiful piece here.
Almost looks like a set of horns, doesn't it?
Quite horny. That's the worst way I've ever
It's on camera.
I've got one of my favourite jokes I tell at these things. What bees make milk?
Horny bees.
Boobies. All day. So you can just have fun. There's no right or wrong. What are you happy with? What looks good to you? But at home you can take hours, weeks, months doing this. It's a good idea to take photos. If you're going to kind of do new layout after new layout, take a photo. You could even use your social media to ask questions and get feedback. Don't be afraid to share the hobby if that's what you want to do. It's looking quite good now. So here, I'm going to keep you aware, we've got a man-made sawn off, can you guys see over there, sorry. We've got this sawn off piece here, which looks obviously very artificial. So I'm hoping that you can probably put an epiphyte in there, maybe a Java fern. Have we got any Java ferns in? Yeah. It's not a George Farmer steak for that Java fern. Good news about Java fern, it will tolerate the warmer temperatures. So, okay, that's good for now. And then what I'm going to do is, good question, what am I going to do? Well, we need to secure it down, so we've got a couple of choices. We can secure it to the actual glass now. We can use, we've got some cotton balls here. And then what we can do is you can push that against the glass and the wood, and you coat a load of super glue on the cotton ball, and then you harden it, and it actually dries like cement, like a putty almost, and just adheres the wood to the glass. That's one way of doing it. The other way is we can put our soil and substrate in. You remember what I said, we're going to plant in the back here, so I'll probably run, actually it might be nice to actually run, so I'm just thinking on the fly now. So we could actually have a sand pathway running between these two, here and in front, and then soil around here, and soil around here, and then two big groups of swords here and here. It's about 2/3 to 1/3 here in terms of proportion, so that's aesthetically balanced. And you get this really nice lead in through the centre there, rather than just a solid block of plants at the back. I quite like that idea.
When you say that, you're going for more of like an island style.
Yeah, so double island.
Double island.
Yeah. Cool. Just need to make it happen now. So I need some stones. I think I'm going to mark out the borders with some rocks. So excuse me a minute. Is anyone using this rock in the dojo?
Nope.
Sorry. Sorry, you haven't made that mistake. Just destroyed it. Okay, we've got some pieces here. They might be too chunky and big, but we'll see what we can do. In case you're wondering why I've got mud all over my trousers, or pants, you call them pants or trousers?
Pants.
Pants. I went on a hike with Vince and Tom earlier, and I managed to fall over and do a commando roll. And got all my stuff.
I wish I recorded the moment.
Yeah. It's pretty epic.
It's pretty epic.
Some military training kicked in. And just pulled, just rolled it out. Yeah, for those that don't know, I was in the Air Force for 14 years before I realised I wanted to be a peace-loving guy and do aquascaping instead. So,
We're in the right country.
yeah. Yeah, I am.
I remember in one of your videos you said you had shrimp tanks while you were in the Air Force.
I did, yeah.
Like, how many tanks did you have?
I had my own office, and then we had a 60p, ODA 60p, or similar size. And that was the only tank I had in the office, but that was a really high-end, pure red line carabiner breeding setup. And I used to make a lot of money selling those little shrimps. Yeah, just like a regular sort of substrate, a load of random plants from Tropica that I want to test. And yeah, I just love it in there. Yeah. Actually running a Fluval G series filter. Does everyone remember that? Like the real high-end fancy filters. They actually have a removable pre-filter as well.
Did you keep any of the shrimps?
No,
To date, no.
they've all gone to yeah. But no, it's good fun. I've never bred animals for profit. It was just a happy accident that they were breeding, and then there was a demand for them, so it made sense. Yeah, interesting experience. Now there is a bit of glue on there, just sort of cool it out before someone else does. That will degrade over time. It's non-toxic, so it'll just peel that off once it gets soaked. Maybe if I can find.
If you need more stone selection, I can get more of that.
Just putting this here temporarily for a second. Excuse me a minute, I'm just going to try to get this piece of stone.
It's great hearing the process. For me, I always rush my stuff. I don't often get that much. Look at it. You gotta appreciate your work, man. How little it actually is. That could be more honest.
Right, my mate Stuart's just given me the perfect piece. So, it's weird now, but it'll make sense later. Okay, it is actually rule of thirds. This is a bit too, this is kind of central now. But it's okay, it's still mixed up in proportion. Okay, so now what we can do is, lots of things. But I want to adhere the wood to the glue, but I think I'll do the substrate first, because if I do the glue first, I'll get soil and stuff in the glue and it'll be messy. So I'm just thinking out loud. So I think soil. What soil do you want to use?
We use Aquaria soil. Tropica's been sold out for Canada for a very long time.
Yeah, catch a bag.
Do you think you want to use the big grains or the small grains?
Big, because we're doing big soil. Yeah, but so It's like child friendly.
The Miles
Where's
is
the
always in
camera?
the store, right?
Those
Those are my favorite scissors.
Clumsy George. Step away. Okay, so this is Aquaria Neo soil, and I've not much experience with it, so if it's like all the other soils I use, it'll be a great home for plant roots. It's the best thing I've ever used.
If you need a little cup to pour
It goes with my colander. Can I take them away as a souvenir?
You can have it.
Do you have a carry-on for your plate?
I've got
Do you have a...
He's checked his
Awesome.
so yeah, he can take
Awesome.
it.
Okay, this is going to be tricky to do without all the soil bouncing into the front. So have you got like a
Yeah, just right there. Yeah, we can pour it in there. Do you need help?
No. Yeah, thank you. So I'm just delicately going to. We could do with blocking that off. Just temporarily do something. Just going to use these balls temporarily to stop hopefully the soil migrating too much into the front. So just going to wedge that there. Right, so. And then any other potential areas we can just block in.
Some cup size choices there.
So I'm just going to put them loose there now, but hopefully that's just going to prevent too much from coming forward. A little gap under here. So this is non-toxic, so we could actually leave this in the tank. It's basically the same material as filter floss. So, where did we get these from, Vince? Just a local shop down the road.
Rexall.
There you go. ADA do some $100. ADA jokes. Good. Right, we can do the soil in the back now, I reckon. Is it going to be quite? Yeah, it's going to be a pain to like hire that now, is it?
If you want.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. In fact, I'll use the I've got a selection of those, that's great. So no need to pre-rinse soil. You're basically rinsing all the nutrients away if you do that. So who's got aquariums at home? Everyone here? Yeah? Anyone entered the IUPLC this year?
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Happy with your results?
Yep.
Did it, when you say no, is it because you had an expectation of rank and it didn't meet that, or?
Yeah.
Felt disappointed?
If you're willing to share, what were you hoping for and what did you actually land?
You told me 500,
I was guessing. Every year is different with the judges, man.
and I was 900 as well.
1,000.
Out of how many people?
I don't know, maybe
Vince, do you know?
2083.
2,000.
Yeah.
That's pretty good, man. You're in the 50th percentile.
I ranked 955.
Oh, mine was pretty bad now.
What did you expect first, and what did you get?
I
No.
was expecting around like
90,
600, 700, but it was like 1280.
Is this your first time competing, or did
Yeah,
you do it?
first one. Yeah.
You know, if you I won't talk about this without standing. If you set up yourself an expectation of a result, then you're bound to have the potential not to be happy. So the key is not to have any expectation and just enjoy the process. If you enjoy the Aquascape and what you did with it, then that's great. You should enjoy that. If your basis of enjoying an aquascape is based around hitting a number, then I think that's probably not the best way to enjoy the hobby, in my opinion. Sorry about that.
No, absolutely, I think that's correctly. At least when I set up the tank, it was meant to be a tank that I enjoy rather than like a competition tank.
Yeah.
So even though it was like that, I was like, well, it's interesting because that you tend to think that okay, it did turn out better than I anticipated.
Yeah.
But the judging criteria can be complex, and the competition is also high.
Yeah. It is. I mean, if you put any of the winning works from the first few years of the contest, they wouldn't be in the top 1,000.
Yeah.
So it just shows how quickly these things evolve. And they don't just evolve in the standard or the skill; they evolve in like style. And obviously each judge has got their own, preconceived ideas. It's very subjective. And so by default, as soon as you enter a contest, it's judged by other people. You're giving up your own kind of, I don't know, it's a weird concept. I mean, I enter the contest now and again. I've never deliberately set an aquarium up for a contest. It's just been a happy byproduct of the work I've been doing. I've felt like, well, that aquascape is probably worthy of entering. But even now, when I think in those terms, my aquascape is worthy. It's like, just that kind of phraseology in my mind sounds like negative, if that makes sense to anyone. But, I massively respect the really high-level competitive aquascapers, and they do a lot for the hobby. They inspire folk. They're pushing boundaries in terms of the aesthetics, but also the technology, photography techniques. All these things trickle down into like the mainstream. It's like the same concept, like a concept car. You get these high-end, super fancy cars. A couple of their kind of engineering features might trickle down, into everyday use. Like Teflon, non-stick frying pans. That was invented because of space travel. So you have this. So there is an element of brilliance to these contests where these really high-level aquascapers that spend their whole life dedicated to creating these works of art. But I think the danger is if you're a new hobbyist or a new scaper and you enter a contest and you have an expectation of a rank and that's not fulfilled for whatever reason, I try not to be disappointed. Try not to have a negative attachment to that result. Just see it as a positive. I've got plenty of room to grow. I've got plenty of, I can definitely get a better rank next year. It's going to be, So there's always a flip side to any negative thing in life. There's always stuff to learn.
Did you ever enter the IAPLC yourself?
Yeah, I've entered probably back 10 years, 10 times or so.
Yeah.
My highest ever rank, I think, was 169. But I've never set a tank up deliberately for it. Quite tempted. My current Highline 400 at home with the swords in the back, did a video of it quite recently. I think that has potential to do really well. Not necessarily a contest, but just to represent a classic nature aquarium with easy plants. That's what I see my personal style as. I love to use the classic easy plants for a good reason. I like to get new people in the hobby, set them up for success. If you can show them how to create something beautiful with something relatively easy, then it gives people the most, motivation to succeed. So, yeah, that's why I love the Java ferns, the Crips, Nubius, the rest, the ones.
I gotta ask because I don't know, but how did you get into the hobby yourself?
It was actually my ex-wife, wife number one. She wanted a tank because her friend's husband had one, and she thought it looked really cool. And so, yeah, I was like, okay. And I quite liked the idea of an aquarium. I remember as a young kid, my granddad having one. and that was my original kind of curiosity. I remember he kept me on Tetras actually, still one of my favourite fishes. So we kept, there's a German brand called Jewel. It's an all-in-one system. There's a Jewel Rio 125, which is 125 litres, which is 33 gallons. And yeah, I wanted to keep a natural looking tank, so I didn't know what aquascaping was or planting tanks was really, but I went to the garden centre that sold aquarium plants, what I thought were aquarium plants. Spent quite a bit of money, about $100, which is a lot when you first start the hobby, and you think, plants are just plants. And yeah, so I bought a load of Dracaena, like Mondo grass, all this Titonia, basically all the stuff you see growing out of tanks and not in tanks. And so obviously it all died of algae. But I'm actually quite like a persistent guy. When I get into something, I really dive into it, and I was determined to succeed. So I discovered like CO2 injection and all that good stuff. And then quickly learned how to grow plants. Like discovered Tom Bar, and then I discovered Amano, and then that was it.
And this was when you were still in the military at the same time?
Yeah, this was like early 2000s.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And then I got really hyper focused on it. So I've got like a neurodivergent issue, which means that when I get into something, I just like go full bore, ignore everything else around me. And just yeah, so I just became addicted to aquascaping basically. And then
still are.
Yeah. So it's yeah, it got to the point where I was in the Air Force, but I was actually in work time, like writing articles for like magazines and stuff. And I became moderator on loads of forums, and just lived and breathed aquascaping and client tanks. And yeah, it got to the point where that didn't work very well. It got to the point where I was doing like public demos and stuff, and then all whilst I was still in the Air Force. And then, some people have seen the video that I talked about when I got blown up in Afghanistan, and that was like the point where I realised I should do aquascaping more and on disposal a bit less. So, yeah, made the jump to become full-time aquascaper. That's in a nutshell.
Well, I'm glad you did that.
Anyway.
Not to get almost blown up, but the transition.
Everything happens for a reason. So yeah, kind of aquascaping provided me a sense of purpose really, because in the Air Force it was a good career, and you could earn good money and do the good thing and all that good stuff, but it wasn't where I was.
Did you feel any purpose in the military, or like a sense of
the opposite?
I hear you.
I'm a peaceful guy. Yeah. So you can see what I've done there. Try to create this little pathway, but what I'm going to do is gently pour the sand over the soil. I'm not cheating, but I don't care. So we're going to put the. Did you put that gravel to one side?
I didn't. It's actually still right there.
Oh,
It should be. He wants the same one in the 60L.
Okay, cool. We'll do the gravel and then we'll probably take another break because I'm getting really super hot.
Brought the hand thing.
Can I get my special scissors? There I think this stuff doesn't need rinsing again.
No, you're good.
So it's nice and easy.
We're gonna have to do daily water changes anyway. So
Yeah. Yeah, you have to embrace the water change.
That's it.
Yeah, can't fight them.
What would you recommend for the beginning? Maybe 50%, a little bit more?
Yeah.
Probably more.
Yeah,
It's a fresh
yeah,
start.
and I actually turn the light right down. We'll probably have the light down on like 5%, 10%.
Yeah. Duration, maybe just 4 or 5 hours, you're saying, or?
Yeah, 5 hours to start with for the first couple of weeks. ECA2 injection?
We do, yes. So I'm
And
gonna have to put a drop checker in after today.
Yeah, so I don't want to. You're going to stay there all day. That's. Where's the camera over there? So, yeah. You move that out of the way. Yeah, so 2014, I became sort of civilian, and then it's kind of just plodded along doing writing magazines and the odd workshop or the odd private install, and then it wasn't until I met Joey Mullen, Joey Y, posted him at my house for a bit, and he kind of inspired me to take YouTube seriously. And that's where the game changed, really. Figured out I'm pretty comfortable in front of the camera, I can use the camera. And yeah, it's just evolved from those early videos where I was doing lots of step-by-step tutorial stuff. And quite a bit cinematic, doing a lot of work for Tropica as well. So really learning my craft on how to actually not just aquascape, but communicate aquascaping. And the best way to learn anything is to teach it. So I guess by writing, for all these magazines and then doing all these instructional videos, workshops, I just became fairly competent at communicating aquascaping, and that's why I'm here now talking to you guys. So hopefully I'll make it into a bit more. I want it to be accessible and practical and easy to follow, but also I want you guys to think, why are we doing it, really? Is it just to keep a pretty fish in a pretty glass box so we can be entertained? Or is it to do something a bit more satisfying on a deeper level? Because I think as humans, I think we're all connected, right? On one level or another. And I think, when you keep an aquascape with fish and plants and they're all living in harmony, that can really, you don't just have to intellectually understand the connection, you can feel the connection. When you're sat there, I don't know if anyone's experienced this, when you genuinely sit there and take in your aquascape, there's no judgment there, you're not thinking how can I improve it, or I've got a bit of algae, or that fish looks a bit sketchy. You're literally just present in the moment with the aquascape. Zero judgment, zero attachment, just you and those living things that are in your care. And they're so grateful for that, and because you've created that environment for them. You've enabled their life. And there's a real kind of beautiful emotion with that. And you really strip it back. That's what else are we here for? Just to sort of serve something a bit more kind of less selfish, And I think when you keep an animal or a plant or any other living entity in your care and you do it properly, it gives you the most beautiful sense of satisfaction and connection that you can't really experience. You can experience it with other humans, but if you've had I had a troublesome childhood, so my emotional kind of maturity has been really late in life. But I've kind of found, this kind of sense of unconditional love that you can receive from other living things like dogs, and cats, and fish, and plants. These aren't humans with judgments. These are just other living things that aren't there to judge you, or when you're not doing things properly, or And I think that fundamental kind of living with other things in that zero judgment space, that's deeply therapeutic and deeply healing, for me anyway. And I think it can be for many more people. You just don't know, they just don't realise it. So, my job isn't just to teach people how to aquascape, but actually think about why am I doing this, and how is it helping me? Why is it helping me? And really go deep on that. And think, actually, maybe I do need to spend a bit more time outside in nature. And I'm enjoying this aquascape so much. I love the way it makes me feel. Why is it making me feel that way? Well, it's because it's teaching you to connect with nature more closely. And there's other ways we can do that. You just go for a walk, got some beautiful nature around here. I was in Hamilton earlier today. It's going really filthy. But the aquascaping can teach you more than just how to create something beautiful. It can teach you why life can be so beautiful.
really liked your video of escaping that huge tank in London. I guess it was last week or the week before.
Yeah, oh, thank you.
And I think you commented at the end that it was one of your best escapes.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on it now that it's a couple weeks later. What was it about that experience with that escape that you really liked?
There's a few levels of joy with that project. All the way, at the beginning of the process, was the guy just reached out to me randomly on Instagram. And I wouldn't have even looked at the DM because I only normally have DMs viewable from contacts. So it was just by happenstance that I boxed his DM. And then, long story short, we met up and we got on really well. So I don't actually advertise private installs because I don't kind of need to. And it's like if people are motivated enough to reach out, then I would take them seriously. Anyway, so we met up and he was a really cool guy. We had a lot in common. And his wife was really lovely as well. And yeah, but so there's the human connection side of the story, which was lovely. But there's also I just realised I'm going full bore ahead and not glued anything, so we'll just pause there for a minute. But yeah, in short, the project was amazing because of the human connection with the clients, the size of the project, because it was massive. I had some help with one of my best mates, Ty Streetman. And I just know that because they're passionate hobbyists already, and they kept a really high-end reef tank before, but they just really got it. The whole nature aquarium philosophy, that connection with nature, the contrast of keeping like a really high-end, energy-hungry reef tank, versus the really kind of contrasting, peaceful, natural vibe of like a slower, more sustainable, energy-friendly aquascape with bees and plants. So that was the reason. Yeah. Well, we'll pause it there. Yeah. I'm going to run out of batteries in a minute.
Another break. Quick introduction.
How long's it been going?
77 minutes.
Oh, cool.
Is everyone feeling cooler now that the fans are starting? Awesome. You can get out there. We don't need you.
Well, I'll stand on top of you anytime.
Vince, do you want to help him with the glue now so then you can get ready?
Sure.
Yeah. Can you leave that down for a second? Or,
Hold it for 2 seconds.
In a little ball. Yeah, she's like my aquarium. It's like one of those shallow ones, so I'm like, thank God it's on that. That thing gets locked once a week anyway.
I gotta know I'm a bit of a clown.
Find their spots too. Yeah. So, yeah. Basically just what I found work is there are
Anything for you, Bass. Anything for you, Bass.
Officially, it's number 2.
If you want to take more frontal photo,
Yeah.
maybe switch seats with you or something.
Oh, I can just pass it.
Yeah, you just let me know.
What's the sound on that thing right now?
The sound is on, yes.
Oh, okay.
for sure.
So I can plug myself in.
Sure.
Brown. It's just easier to tell in that because the white light screen or the white background.
Wow, it looks so different.
It looks
The
so
biggest thing with YouTube live streaming is like getting the viewers that are actively on it to like the stream. That's what Twitch is.
Oh, I see.
A couple reminders there that aren't from a distant place, however many feet away. Might be
For those of you, just like and share the post.
Sometimes they post it on the stories. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah, these days, it's like, I think
Bueno.
fish do appreciate the connection because
Yeah, I was like kind of freaking in and out.
So, yeah. They're actually doing just
Yeah.
they love this.
Sorry, excuse me.
No, no.
So for them, they're all
Thanks, Justin.
so yeah.
It looks good.
Thanks, yeah. It was meant like a temporary thing, but it became its own thing.
No, true enough. It's funny how accidental sometimes becomes like the best thing.
Take care of yourself, man. You got a long.
Take care of him.
Yeah. Hey Tom, do you guys make a light screen that's 30 by 45?
So 45 high.
45?
Yeah, 30 by 45.
No, that's an awkward shape. I have 30, 30, 45, 28, 60, 80, 60, 36. I don't think I have.
Okay.
It's more taller than long.
Yeah, it's one of those two.
All of ours is like.
It's wider, yeah.
You guys want to sit there? Let me know if you feel this. Or just sitting in the middle.
I mean, from standing here, I can feel it. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So none of us die in here in the next couple hours.
Seems like it's gotten very hot in here.
Oh yeah, the AC. What does the AC say now, Mike?
It's super cold. It's just like tough to heat up. Where's the AC?
Is the washroom door open?
No.
Make sure it's open because the AC comes from there too.
25.
It's a very nice looking tent.
Thanks for making it, you guys. We're a little bit tight, so once everyone gets seated, we'll figure out some spots for you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, what else did we get here on time?
I think he said there's gonna be discus going in.
Take some pictures from this angle.
You can see him downstairs if you go.
Oh.
What is the inlets now? Let's see.
Those are similar ones. I don't know if they're like the exact, but yeah, the same kind.
Who makes the background?
I do. Well, I order them. They're all plants at
Are
Aquaria.
they Chinese?
Yes, they're manufactured in China.
Are they custom? Can you make them custom sized?
I could. We're just not doing an order right now. I'll have to take pre-orders and stuff like that.
The discs that are going in are the same ones that
That's
were
right.
in the previous?
That's right.
Oh, awesome.
They're all just downstairs waiting for a new home right now, man.
It's good.
Yeah.
I know, man. I think it matches.
It's a rooted, like it's planted into the
You just put it on top and call it a day. There are roots in the middle where the bananas connect to the leaf.
Yeah.
And the stems the roots kind of come out.
They
and
will
make
go
themselves.
down.
That's right. Think of it as like a bulb. It's a very awkward bulb.
So just kind of like
That's
a
right.
partial.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna step aside.
Yeah,
for a
yeah,
second.
Oh yeah. Never
Doing all right, buddy?
Sorry, I made it.
We're doing dinner after, right? Yeah.
It needs to start gluing.
Let's see.
Just a quick comment. Nice to meet you.
It's still rolling. Oh yeah. Right, now I need to glue everything in. Vince, you gonna have me gluing, mate?
Do you need the glue? I know I am in someone's spot.
No, that's fine. No, that's fine. Go for it.
Vince, do you have the other bottle of Instaset? Do you?
No, I don't have it.
Did we remove anything? Oh yeah, yeah. George put it on the floor already. Okay.
Starting to really ache off my commando roll now.
Yeah. I'll move out of the way.
Really white part? Yeah, I think I sprained my wrist and then I landed really, it's really hurting now.
It is?
Yeah, I'm too old for this.
Well, it's the spin afterwards. Whose idea was the hike?
Mine, probably. So I reckon that load in there.
It was a mutual decision for that hike.
Hey, you know what? It's the best way to keep up with employer and experience ways.
What's this extra chair right there?
There's 3 chairs. Yeah, I don't know if those are taken.
Those are, I think, John as well as
John
and Frankie.
Adrian's
Present.
Okay. You're taking your chair back. I think the 2 extra chairs were on the other end.
So I'm just squirting a load of super glue. And then what you think is? That's going to attach the wood to the glass. So that will secure this piece of wood down. And then we put another bit to secure this piece of wood to this piece of wood. And then eventually everything's going to be interlinked. And then with the stones on top, hopefully, nothing's going to float, Vince. Is it?
No.
If it does, who can I blame?
Me, Vince.
Okay, that's why he's here.
You always need a blame guy.
But when it's good, it's my fault too, right?
Not fault though. So same question for this, yeah. I'll ask people to tweezers and try. Any more?
A little bit more.
So I'm asking you the question because if it does go wrong, then that's you're taking ownership.
There you go.
There you go. Psychological
I know my role.
tricks.
I know my role.
Well, you handle it well, Vince.
My pleasure.
Okay, I think
We got like 3 of them.
So George, a question for you.
yeah.
This would have been better, I think, when you were talking about the tank. But in your experience, like having tried all the different kinds of rimless tanks,
Yeah.
what's your like thoughts about the longevity of the silicone and the tank leaking? Do you have you ever run into those issues?
I've never actually run into them ever, and the longest I ever kept one was probably 5-6 years. Yeah, I've never kept one for more than 5 or 6 years, but I know the original one's still running in the Nature Aquarium Gallery in Japan, which is over 30 years.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, but I think they generally say 10 years on silicon.
Yeah.
So anything after that, I suggest it's kind of at your own risk, really.
And that's exactly why, because ADA's tanks, they have that on the booklet. They kind of say 10 years.
Wow.
So
if you've got like if you spent an ADA F1 ATP,
yeah.
it's about 10,000 US Canadian.
Yeah.
10 years. Okay. So what we can, another top tip, we can actually grind up soil or smash soil up to make it into a brown powder. Put a little bit of glue, more glue on the cotton balls, and then disguise it with brown. But you need gloves to do that. Have we got any gloves? You got gloves? Can I borrow some?
Chris,
Some gloves, please.
on your left-hand side, there's a glove box. Yeah, one more. Yeah, perfect, thank you.
Glove box.
Oh, thank you.
They're kind of baby sized.
Okay. I've only got small
Yours can
hands.
squeeze in there.
You know what they say? Small hands, small gloves. You thought I was going to say something else? I think you didn't.
Has there been any lines or anything you're following with the placement of your escape on woods other than the kind of the third rules?
No, nothing specific. Although the rocks I've tried to use the strata, so it's kind of all pointing towards the flow. So you can see the strata here kind of going up this way. And then similar with this here. What do you reckon? I think. Yeah, I think in there. And then we'll just amplify some in there, I think. So I'm going to. I'll wait till all the cotton wall's in there, and then we'll powder up some soil. It's the first time I think I've worn gloves in the workshop.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think I've ever seen
Maybe look pretty good. Like Vogue style. Yeah, good, mate. You can do the detailing later, so I'm going to put some detail gravel around the front to make the transition of the kind of pure white gravel to the stones more attractive. Another top tip is you can actually get a bigger kind of or a medium size piece of Sirius stone, get a big hammer and a chisel, some safety glasses, smash up the rock, and then you've got some beautiful detail pieces that you can use. More blue in there then?
Should we do this stuff?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go and get some plants. Vince, do you want to keep the audience entertained?
Sure.
Tell them that story you told me last night.
Which one?
Good luck. Right, do I have, can I take, yeah, thank you. I was going to say I need a bucket. In fact, someone can follow me down with the camera. Yeah?
I got you, yeah.
Makes sense if you're happy with that.
Super happy.
Cool. So we're going to go select some plants. I might need a bigger bucket. Okay. So this is for discus. So I'm really keen to use Amazon swords, Econodora. We use some Java fern. Right, let's start off with the swords. Really like these are nice. Red flame.
Is that what the tag says there?
Yeah.
Red flame.
There we go. A couple of those.
Beautiful stuff.
So this will get really tall. Might even grow out the top of the tank eventually. Pretty cool.
That's it. And how many Econodora species do you think you'll be mixing?
I reckon at least 3 species. So what here?
Would you say too much variety will throw off the scape?
Yeah, you want to keep. But the good thing is the leaf textures, the leaf shapes are quite similar. So you can get away with using them quite kind of. They don't have to be strictly in groups, if you know what I mean. It's nice to mix them up to make it a bit more natural.
Some Gabriellis.
Yeah. How big do these get? I've never grown these.
I think that's what you see is what you get. They just get bushier.
Oh, okay. That's
yeah.
perfect then for this, yeah.
All the tall Echoenodoras we keep on the upstairs plant tank, like the very tall ones.
Oh, so there's some tall ones in that with the red flame.
Upstairs, yeah. We have like the swords and whatnot. There is like the jaguar in there, but some of the leaves are kind of melting.
Okay, yeah.
And we do have this one right here, the fantastic color.
Oh, nice, yeah. Fantastic colour.
Yeah, perfect. Are you going to be doing the ferns now as well or later?
We'll do them. Yeah, we'll get them now.
Sure.
No,
We can always miss the plants, so it's not a big deal.
yeah, that's true. We'll do the ferns now. We've got some nubius as well.
Yep. I have step ladder. Can you reach though? Awesome. So George is just grabbing some Anubias butterfly.
Interesting name. These are all new. These aren't Tropica.
These are not Tropica. These are from Singapore. No, Thailand. Sorry.
Okay, they seem good shape.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I'll go to
Java ferns are over here, and there are that's the mini, I believe. So those are Tropica ferns,
Yeah.
and then we have the Thailand ferns down here.
Yeah, let's go for some. Yeah, go for some Friday.
Do you have a favorite fern?
I love Friday.
I gotcha.
We'll get some. Those. And then, yeah, just start off the craft. If you need any more.
Awesome.
We'll come back. And then up the stairs.
Everyone gets a nice shot of your dirty pants right now. Yeah.
Very happy, but truthfully, it's one of those things like that's something that was not mentioned. But when we look at like, for example, Stephen Chong or anything with Tom Horton, they've been doing it for 15 years. Don't forget that. Like, how long have we been doing it? Some of us take a little bit more time.
Vince, take the camera and set it back.
Cheers. Thank you for keeping everyone going.
Oh, good, yes.
Yeah, thank you too.
This is great. I said American, but
Okay, I've got my garbage. And then tidbits, do you mind starting to prepare some parts?
Yeah, of course. Just take everything from the base and such.
Yeah.
Okay. What first would you like? Big ones?
Yeah. Excuse the cramped wear conditions. Intimate, I'd say.
Get a good view.
So, super easy to prepare swords. Top tip, when you're preparing swords, you take off a few of the outside leaves. It actually encourages the plant to generate more root growth and more new leaf growth, which is going to be readily adapted to underwater. So, and with such a heavy, robust rootstock, we don't even need to use tweezers. You can literally pop it in with your finger. And because we've got fancy gloves, I don't even get dirty fingers now. Brilliant. Cheers, mate. So this is Echoenodora's red flame. It's going to get quite tall. Might even come out the surface of the tank if we're lucky. And because it's rimless, we can actually, encourage that. Outside plant growth. Another top tip is tay roots, like so. That's going to generate new root growth, also making it much easier to plant into. And then what I'd encourage you to use is like Tropica nutrition capsules as well, to really get those plant roots well fed.
would you put root tabs right in the beginning before you fill up water, or wait a couple months?
I'd probably, you can do it right at the beginning. Some people even empty the little balls out of the capsules, put it on a small layer, and then top it off. But I just like to use the soil is very nutrient rich to start with, so I tend to use that for the first month or so at least. And then just keep an eye on your plants. If they start showing nutrient deficiencies, you can either put a bit more liquid fertilizer in, maybe add a nutrient capsule, or both. The real thing is that we're trying to give the plants the best chance possible
Yeah.
of success. So, you know, good liquid fertiliser, good CO2 injection ideally. Has everyone got a CO2 injection here? Anyone?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a game changer, isn't it? If you really want to have the best chance of success with any plant. I mean, you can obviously grow plants without it, but you know, if you're a serious sort of aquascaper that wants to grow in, you know, aquascapes, you know, not take too long, or you want to experiment with harder, more difficult plants, and you know, CO2 injection is pretty regarded as essential, really.
Do you have any little tech tanks at home yourself?
Well, my cichlid tank,
one, that's
yeah, it's got no plants in it.
Right.
So
do you heavily rely on filtration for that tank?
Yeah, yeah. Actually got two on there now. I've got an RZ Dry Master 850 and 600. Yeah. So they're messy fish, and I like to feed them a lot. Yeah, but they're beautiful fish. And that's the first. I was speaking to Gordon about monster fish keeping. It's a similar thing with the cichlid tank. It's you know, you're relying purely on your technology to clean the water.
That's right.
You know, although the Aquascape has got a lot of hardscape, which will be biological media on its own because of the way the rock is proposed. It's just basically one big giant biological media, isn't it? Effectively.
When it comes to those tanks, do you add any like Purigen or additives in your canister filter as well? Or just relying on biomedia as much?
Yeah, I just literally just use the supplied media from the Awaze, the sponges, and it comes with some plastic K1 type media as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've had great results
Awesome.
with it. Yeah, I mean they're great filters. I mean the Biomasters are the reason I started working with Awaze to start with. Yeah.
The pre-filter is a game changer, that's for sure.
Oh yeah. It's great to have that heat taken out of the tank. Yeah. If anyone subscribes to me on my YouTube, there's a new video out today. I don't know if anyone's seen it yet. Do you want to see it? My mate Nick, and he's got like it's a homescape tour, and I think he's got 5 or 6 aquariums, but they're all low tech, and he's got like a no tech one, so just literally relying on the sun. But yeah, check it out. It's a really good one. I've got the spray bottle.
Yes, she had to use some.
So Econodora is one of the plants.
Well, you might have to close the front nozzle there to spray it more. Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
So Econodora does need to be kept wet when out of water. It can die off quite quickly. So just be mindful of that. I'm a bit paranoid about this wood floating. I might have to put rocks on it as we fill up and then slowly lift the rocks up as it fills to see.
I think that's what we did with Escape originally in the same tank that you're building now.
That's good.
We had to put a bunch of rocks on it for like a month or two.
Yeah.
When you're putting these plants in, are you being mindful of where each plant's going by any chance, or?
Yeah, sorry, I should have thought about that. I just go on autopilot. Yeah, the shorter swords are going towards the centre, so then we have the taller sword, so we have this distinct kind of V shape, and it then leads into this path down the centre. Well, I think it's coming together nicely, isn't it? I think the greens contrast really lovely with that blue background. The white, of course, contrasts with everything else. Yeah, and the fish will hopefully come towards the front. So,
I think the one thing missing here would be a lotus, I think. Right? No?
maybe for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I agree. But not for me.
It reminds me of like one of the ADA gallery.
Yeah, that's a
scapes.
compliment. Thank you. And one of my best tips is if you get your hardscape right, you can just literally plug and play with your epiphytes. Literally wedge them in the cracks. And those roots will naturally grow over the hardscape and, you know, really affix themselves. So, I mean, I haven't really talked about the plants in any detail yet, have I? I've just gone straight into full aquascaping. But Econodora species, most of you are probably aware, is the group of plants that are referred to as Amazon swords. There's probably well over 100 species available in the hobby. Readily available at any one time, you probably can get 20 or so species. But they're usually, most of them are relatively easy. They don't necessarily need loads of light, but they do definitely benefit from a nutritious substrate. So the soil is going to help here, and as we talked about earlier, we're going to potentially add nutrition capsules. So we've got two species in there. There's the red flame and the, what was the other one, Tom? Gabrielli.
You got one of the fantastic colors, I believe.
Oh yeah, so 3 species altogether. The taller ones here, that's the red flame and the fantastic colour,
yeah.
And then the Gabrielli towards the centre. Now we could put some other smaller Echoenadoras around here to accentuate that V. So we'll have a think and see what's available potentially. Is there anything in here in fact?
There's swords. Yeah, there's swords up here, but I think they get fairly large.
Okay.
So those need to go on the outside corners. But if you want to go back downstairs to grab one.
Yeah, maybe an Ocelot Mini, just for this.
Yeah.
Just one maybe.
One.
Yeah, please, thank you. Feels pretty solid now. Failed. I've done a few workshops and exploded, and it's so embarrassing. We're all human though, aren't we? Well, I think we are.
Always happens.
And that or a simulation or something. Okay, let's just do a little bit of detail work now. We can sort of slope the soil. Sorry for the mess. Up towards the gravel, up towards the stones, that just makes it a bit more naturalistic. Put a load of the gravel over that ugly bit of bottom wall there. You can see I've been a bit overzealous with the soil and it's kind of come forward. It's going to do the same round here, so in the longer term you might want to think about breaking up some small rocks and then popping them, making a little kind of border to prevent that from... Oh, here we are. Is that by magic? There we go, so we talked about earlier, sorry about that. He's buys me a red collar though, and I'm abusing him. So, yeah, just lovely small pieces of detailing. So what I'm going to do now is actually use these to define the path more distinctly. Where are we going for dinner tonight?
Fire hall.
That sounds dangerous. I'm a peaceful guy now. Fire in the hole. Chickens. Not again. I thought I was in Toronto. Playing with rocks. What else should we talk about? So water changes, an absolutely vital piece of the puzzle if you want to succeed with aquascaping long term. If I can tell you one thing, if you can fall in love with maintenance, then you will be one of the world's best aquascapers, if you want to be. Because the maintenance is the part where it separates, you know, a hobbyist from a serious scaper. And actually I really like the maintenance and I enjoy it and I look forward to it. Can I have a clean pair of tweezers? Should have known there now, let's saw him earlier. So maintenance is essential, you know, and if you don't maintain the tank, you'll get punished basically. So you'll get algae, you know, you'll get poor water quality, that leads to, you know, fish health issues potentially. And you want, you know, we're looking after something that's in our care. You know, this is a living, breathing ecosystem, all the way from those tiny bacteria, you know, all the way up to the biggest fish that you keep. You know, they're all within your kind of care. You're responsible, so we need to maintain it. But by maintaining it, we're not just doing it, you know, we're doing it largely to keep everything healthy. But a byproduct of that is you get rewarded with that real sense of achievement, because hopefully the tank will look better after your maintenance session. You know, even if it doesn't look better in terms of the aesthetics, because you might have done a big trim or moved something around that you're not entirely happy with, at least you know that the water's been changed, the filter's been cleaned, or whatever you needed to do to maintain that aquarium on a biological level, not just an aesthetic level. So, you know, water changes and cleaning the aquarium glass, to us, to many people, are just an unnecessary evil that we need to do to keep the tank looking good. That's the wrong mindset. It's not an unnecessary evil, it's a necessary joy. You just really flip it, because by maintaining these things, they can really teach you like a sense of mindfulness. You know, while you're completely focused on that one thing that you're doing, you know, you're not worried about the past, you're not anxious about the future, it's just you and that thing, right? Just one-to-one, living in the present moment. And nothing can take you away from that. That's the ultimate joy. And you can experience these moments of pure clarity and awareness while doing things like maintaining your aquarium. So next time you maintain your tank, don't just see it as a chore and an unnecessary evil. Really focus on the here and now and the present moment, and when you're actually doing that maintenance, you're trimming a leaf or taking a snail out, changing the water, that's the first bit of water, fresh water that goes in. Just really focus on that moment in time and be present with it. And there becomes real joy of aquascaping. It's not just about having a beautiful fish tank, that's not a beautiful byproduct. It's actually about connecting with something that can make you more aware. Good. Spray. Thanks, mate. Okay, so we're into the detailing stage now. So we've got some more little rocks that I'm going to place around the bigger stones. So you can do this almost randomly, but still with a little sense of care. And think about, in nature, you know, how do these little clusters of islands form, you know, when you see them on the beach? You know, just next time you go out for a walk and you see a clump of rocks or a bit of moss on a bit of wood, you know, just think, oh, that's cool, that's what it looks like in nature. I wonder how I can now maybe apply that into my home aquascapes. And that's the beauty of this hobby, you know, you're constantly, when you become obsessed with something like me, you're constantly thinking about it and you're constantly like associating things with it. And I think that's a healthy thing, you know, if you've got a healthy hobby, there are obviously less healthy hobbies about, you can get obsessed about things, but why not get obsessed about connecting with nature? I think, what a cool thing to get into. It certainly helped me out. And do we have that really small? Is there a small bag of that gravel? Do I remember the one I pointed out? Pencil, no.
It's the one beside the pebble. The big bags.
Yeah. Can you open it?
And then you want the large pebbles as well.
Yeah, I don't think we'll need
In the
them
big
now.
bags.
No, okay.
It only comes in the big bags. Am I getting it? Oh,
No, don't worry about the big pebbles.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah, yeah. Good. I do need to do my fancy soil technique on this bit of where's the soil there? Ah, got some in the foreground.
I have a magnet.
Oh, that's a cool one, yeah. Can you get it?
It's actually right in front of Vince, behind that cup. There you go. It's an extending magnet. Yeah, you're gonna see right now. You can actually use it underwater as well.
Was that iron in the soil?
You take that off my
Yeah,
bed?
there's like iron or some sort of.
So you know you've got good iron content in the soil. Like to recycle those 5 grains.
George, when you're putting the soil there, that you scooped it with your hand.
Oh, yeah, that was to disguise the white cotton oil. So I just sort of crushed it up and then smeared it. Yeah, it's fun actually. Fun process. That's the thing about aquascaping, it's fun, right? You're connecting with something, it's like connecting in control to. Do you remember like playing maybe sand pits and sand castles and
marbles and whatnot?
yeah, you know, and playing on the beach and rock pooling and you know, in my mind, this is all joyous, playful times that you experience as a kid, but as an adult, you kind of it gets filtered out of you. You know, you get taught that you shouldn't have so much fun and you just be like working your arse off all the time.
A lot of our customers who shop here say it's like an adult candy store when they come in.
Yeah, it is. You know, and like when we walked this morning hiking, you know, what was I like? I was like running through the waterfall.
You were like a child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have video of that?
Unfortunately, I missed it.
Vince got a special
I
video.
think Vince got it though, yeah.
10 out of 10.
The Vince is use only.
Private for Vince, exactly. You gotta subscribe.
Only things.
Which falls did you guys go over?
Sorry? We went to Smoky Hollow Point. In Hamilton.
Okay, detailing. Oh, let's spray the plants again. So if we'll just like have a little prayer or whatever you want to do about the wood, please, whoever's in charge of stuff, make the wood not float. Thank you.
Floating gods.
Yeah. Okay, final detailing work now with some gravel, natural gravel. I forget it's just a generic kind of pea
It's on the
gravel.
white label at the back, Vince. If you twist it, you can read the name.
Nutmeg, number 5.
Nutmeg.
This is my favourite nutmeg, the number 5. It's a good strong year. So I just do a little pile in front of each dominant piece of hardscape, and then using my fingers, we can just spread it out, make it look a bit more natural.
In terms of maintenance over the months or years, do you add extra gravel or extra sand?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with literally if this gets covered in algae, which it probably will do. Nothing wrong with either giving it a really good stir, and then siphon out as you stir, or just hoovering it all out and then putting a fresh new layer in.
I got
you. One £20 bag that's going to last literally years. It's probably a thin layer every couple of weeks or so.
Have you done that before?
Yeah.
Do you think like the silicate would like increase diatom algae every time you add sand back in?
I think that's an urban myth,
I
or an aquarium myth. I've never experienced diatoms as a result of adding sand.
Gotcha.
Yeah, personally. Yeah, it's really interesting what you read on the internet and books and stuff. These are natural processes. A lot of this stuff that isn't is so open to variables that we probably aren't even aware of. It's very rarely that you'll get all of these correlations happening all the time, because it is correlation, it's not causation. So just be mindful of that, what you read, and a big lesson is learning for yourself, but also following a few people that know what they're talking about.
Well, trial and error yourself is the best.
Yeah.
Ultimately, right?
But it's good, yeah. But there's a balance between that and also ensuring that the guy that's starting the hobby is starting off with a good chance of success. Because if he tries to do everything on his own without asking for advice, he's probably going to fail and then get disheartened, and then you've lost him or her for life. So, in my mind, it's good to get a good source of information. I recommend UK Aquatic Plant Society forum. I don't know if anyone's aware of that. It's full of really experienced folk that are willing to give their advice all for free. But it's a forum, so as opposed to like a Facebook group or Instagram or Twitch or whatever people.
Just keep twisting it; it'll correct it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, gotcha. And then, because forums are easier to search, and they've got separate sub-forums and journals and things like this. So
You mentioned UK APS.
yeah, UK Aquatic Plant Society, UKAPS.org. Yeah, it's a really good source of information. Okay, we're ready for water, but
Do you want to take a break while I set up the holes?
yeah, let's take a break.
All right.
That's all right though, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's great. Good.
Yes, store them that way. It's empty, right?
Oh yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
Still on.
That's right, man. It's up to me and they're maintaining. That's right. No, probably not. With the soil, it's not probably like a lot of reposts on the social media, man. Yeah. I think 5 6. Along with other school fishes, maybe. The discuses, I haven't sexed them yet, so I'm not sure what they are. I got them. The ones that get picked up in the airport. That's right. Yeah. We're like, yeah. Browse around.
Anyone who needs to take parking now.
Anyone needs to use wash, use it now, because I'm going to set up the holes and it's going to be unavailable.
It's like my house.
We got one downstairs too if you need it.
That's right. We do have washing downstairs, worst comes to worst. Enjoying yourself?
Yeah.
Right on. Glad you could make it by, actually. Yeah, no problem.
Is that a glue mark on that run?
Yeah.
Yeah. Scratch her off. Oh yeah.
I've asked everyone except for George, but are you enjoying yourself?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Train, but it's like whether.
How's your hand? Do you still need ice or?
No, I'm good. Yeah, well, my right leg now is seizing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little obvious from the back with the
A little
dirt.
bit, yeah.
My hand's dirty, guy.
So the fish are really good.
Yeah.
Nice simple steak, I like it. Because
It's
you don't want to
fantastic.
distract from the fish, because the discus of the show.
That's right.
They have debonder as well, so debond it eventually.
You putting the discus in the barbs and
No, I'm going to change the cherry barbs to probably some sort of tetra that can handle a little bit higher heat.
okay.
And then I'm going to mix some corridoras that can also handle higher heat as well.
I think you're
Love the
gonna
quarries.
find some, like, these guys, sorry, what's the blanking, not the
Chili's
neons,
Oh,
cardinals.
Cardinals, yeah. I don't know. I'm gonna have to do research on like the temperature. I haven't. Cardinals should be okay. Yeah,
Should be fine, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
because they belong in the same habitat.
That's right.
No worries.
So,
Do your thing.
like, I mean,
I want to find Tetras that will thrive in hot water though, not just be okay.
yeah.
You know.
So, like, because go check out this guy, the tank tester.
Oh yeah, I've seen him on YouTube. Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
his stuff, he did one where he went to the Paraiba,
Yeah.
I think, and he was like recording video. And
Yeah, yeah.
And so, and even this guy, Corey, where he was,
Yeah, yeah.
like when they go fishing and hunting and stuff,
Yeah.
basically discus, angelfish, and all these like tetras, they all coexist.
Sorry, Vince, just let Liam pass by real quick. Oh, you got it. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
You're focused on escape.
Just like George said, immerse yourself.
Do you mind if I just take a quick picture?
Of course. Just want to make sure that there's no flotation.
Yeah. Hopefully.
We're kind of.
Awesome.
How would you choose the size of these?
Do you know what filter you have?
It's like
You like that
Oh yeah, you're gonna have to. Do you know what size you are? 12, 16, 16, 22?
what's it called?
Choose. Yeah. You're gonna have to figure that out.
And that's the thing, right? It's like.
Just search up like the E-High filter
Yeah.
and type in the tube size to see what you get.
What do you like for a carpet? Like it's highlight, but there's a slight shading.
Yeah.
Cuba or something?
Yeah. You can do Cuba or Monte Carlo. Depends on the scale. Cuba's smaller than Carlo.
It's a small thing. It's 12 by 12.
I do Cuba. And yeah. You're running CO2 though, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna need that. All right. Is the washroom done? I'm just gonna get the hose.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
You excited this weekend?
Yeah, I am.
It's gonna be fun.
If there's one day to go, should I go Saturday or Sunday?
If you go Saturday, technically speaking, some of the vendors only go for one day. They only go for Saturday.
Okay, Saturday.
So
okay.
that's when I would go. Because I know, for example, there's this local guy that sells tropical plants, and he's only there Saturday.
Okay.
Now, at the same time, if you go around like 4 p.m., then all of the aquascapers that are doing the competition should finish their tank because at 5 is our cutoff time.
5 the event ends? Or aquascaping ends?
Aquascaping
Okay.
competition itself.
Yeah, so it would be like finishing up around 4.
Oh, you think they're here?
Must be something of what's going on.
It's 12, 16, should I get the medium?
Tom, check.
Yeah, he has. There, we have the bigger.
Am I grabbing me a bottle of water? Thanks so much, man. Quick.
Just behind you, Vince.
Does anyone else want to grab George Farmer book?
Closure, I think most people have it.
No, he's gonna sign it personalized.
Yeah, he can sign it for you.
I'll grab one.
Doesn't sign it.
I want my refund. It's probably best now if you would actually get a pen.
got anything going on for the next few days at the expo?
Yeah, so I'm going to be taking part on the live aquascaping competition.
Right.
So that'll
Yeah.
be lots of fun.
I heard like you get to take home the hardscape you use in the competition.
So you can take your wood, you can take your plants. That being said, the stones, I don't believe so. You have the possibility of buying your aquascape, and then whatever you pay, 25% will be given as a donation.
Oh, nice.
It's also providing.
Yeah. It's a good little charity event as well. Yeah, because I mean, by no means do this level of stuff, but it was funny because my friend was like, well, you can just jump. And I was like, well, I'm working here tomorrow because we're running the store for them, so they could go. But
of course,
definitely gonna be fun. Plus, you can just like throw some more wood in the pile for when you need it, right?
That's true.
When I first got into this, I was always Googling like what wood around our area is safe to use. And, honestly, it's just easier to get the small pieces like imported from here, even though they're more expensive.
Yeah, not the downfall, but the tricky thing is you can get pathogens as well.
Exactly, yeah.
In the wood that can affect your fish. And if you know, let's say you get discus, 40, 50 bucks a fish, they all die because you got local wood. Well, what's worse, buying a 20-piece of wood or
risking the lives?
Exactly, just balancing.
The whole aquarium.
Well, that's exactly it. It's like any hobby, right? It depends how often you do it. Now, don't get me wrong, I love making myself, like, I have little terrariums and I'm just going to get local moss and local things, and it's in its jar, in its little environment, and it's okay. It's not going to touch anything else. Most of them don't do well, but, it's enjoyable.
Yeah. Actually, I'm stealing some springtails from Tom tomorrow or something. Because I have a little, I don't know if they deal with mold at all, but I had a little bit on my like sphagnum moss in my new terrarium. But I'm keeping it wet because I have a bunch of, like, I have a nucleus and like storage repens in there and stuff like that, so.
Yeah, it definitely will help.
Honestly.
I'm not saying they're not insured,
no,
but they will. And yeah, having those definitely. And if you get a little bit of mold with your, you said a terrarium? What kind of terrarium? What is that?
Terrarium.
Terrarium?
Yeah.
If you open the air and fresh air, like even 10 minutes a day, it will slowly reduce the humidity just for a little bit, allowing the mold to settle down. Now, it's not a fix, but it will.
Yeah. I've been just wiping, I leave it open a bit, just the last few days, because this has only been like a 2 or 3 week thing.
Okay.
I actually made it to bring in here to see if we wanted to throw some terrariums around to show people what you can do with it.
True.
But better to just leave it to the aquatic stuff right now.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Any hobby, you want to showcase as many things as you want, but then
exactly, right? Especially at home when you have like so many plants that overgrow themselves, and you're just like, well, I just don't want to throw all this out. Like throw it in some jars, you get a value village or something. True.
Half a second.
So I don't know if you know
I noticed that you saw on my
Okay.
friendly as hell.
Oh, really?
That's example from you.
Virtually, right? He handles it.
Just go second. Almost. Is that enough? We have to move those buckets around.
I'll just, there we go.
Hello, folks. Sorry?
It doesn't matter. Musical theory.
Hope I don't knock it. No, the Doa was the first one where I actually glued anything.
Oh,
So I
okay.
was just using Gorilla Glue.
Well, you get the ladder again. You can make new friends.
Right, should we do a Q&A while we're waiting for water? Has anyone got any questions about anything? It doesn't have to be about this tank or...
Here's your Q&A, ask him to sign for it.
Any questions?
Take your seats, keep doing Q&As now. If anyone has any questions over there, just raise your hand.
With the discus that are going in here, how often should they be fed then? And is it just beef part, or can they have anything else?
The stenkers are designed to be fed this kind of specialist food, which is a mixture of beef part, but other sort of nutrients, micronutrients, and stuff to make it a complete meal.
Yeah.
So if you do feed that, they recommend 3 times a day, and there's a certain weight per fish that you're supposed to feed, split up into those 3 times a day. That's if you follow it to the letter. They can be adapted to other foods, dry foods. There's brands out there which are reputable. But yeah, it's an interesting one because you're feeding, a cow to a fish.
Right.
Just when you think about it, you're feeding like the heart of a cow to a fish that would never have probably eaten that in nature.
Right.
Sure enough. But where do you draw the line between what you eat in nature and what is convenient and vegan?
You're not on camera.
So yeah, the ethical kind of argument about feeding animals to animals is an interesting one. But yeah, that's on paper 3 times a day. Can't remember how much weight per fish. Depends on the size of the fish as well.
That's pretty specific then.
Yeah, if you want to follow it to the Stenker, the Stenker are a very reputable breeder of German discus, and they've been doing it for 60 years now. So they've got it down, how to keep the fish really well.
They're coming to an end though.
Yeah, I heard.
It's very sad.
Yeah.
Very sad.
Yeah. But yeah, it's going to be it's not going to be an easy tank to maintain. It's a lot of hard work. There'll be a lot of water changes, making sure that accumulated waste doesn't build up. That food, the Echoenadora will help. If you get some really fat amano shrimp that are able to kind of fight off the discus, which might try to hunt them. Amano shrimp are surprisingly resilient actually, and they'll get the food probably before the discus will. But yeah, so Echoenadora will help to keep the gravel nice and clean by turning it over regularly. I'd recommend, I think it's the 5 discus, I wouldn't put any more than 5 in here personally. And then if you wanted to keep a dinner fish, I'd probably go for some sort of tetra, something sort of a bit taller bodied that's tolerant of the warmer water, so 28 or 82 Fahrenheit. But yeah, I'll be doing daily water changes for the first week, and then every other day for the second, every third day for the third, and then after a week, you could, in a normal aquascape, go to 1 water change a week, but in here, I'll do at least 2 50% water changes a week in here, and be relentless about keeping this clean. Give it a good wave with your hand, all the crap will lift up, siphon that away as part of your water change. Any waste towards the back will hopefully get decomposed by the Janssen sword roots, and also the cories and any other like shrimp will hopefully keep it relatively free from algae and accumulation of waste. The lighting I'll probably hand much higher, and then really ramp it down. You've got exposed to nubius here, which doesn't like a lot of light. The ferns will be okay with low lighting. The swords will be okay. They'll they'll be okay with the lower lighting until they kind of adapt, and then you can potentially ramp up the lighting a bit because the swords are then hungry for the nutrients, and that's going to help prevent algae building up on the other plants, hopefully, and hardscape. So, is it a Biomaster 600 in there?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll probably upgrade that to an 850 actually, for the longer term.
I told her.
And then you could arguably replace the media with something that has a potential higher biological capacity than sponge. I mean, I've only used sponges in my discus tank, but it probably wouldn't do any harm. Silicone matrix, that kind of thing, so it tends to be quite popular. And then if you were concerned about tannin build-up from the wood, you could just pop some Purigen in there as well. Or you can, I don't know if it's available over here, but you can get pre-filter sponges that are carbon as well.
Yeah.
So purify the water that way.
Right now in there is just the red sponge on the very top, and the
Okay.
rest is biomedium.
Okay, that's cool. Okay, give it a bit of a spray. Have we got it ready to add water?
Yes, the hose is just right there.
Okay. Good.
Quick question too, do you change your pre-filter sponge to the more coarse one, or do you leave it how it is?
Yeah, I would change it to the coarsest one.
It's already changed.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay.
Turn the golden nozzle.
The golden nozzle. I like
Careful,
that.
it's in those drop down. Yeah, there you go.
We need my collar now, don't we? Where is it?
It has strawberries in it.
There you go.
Do you want some stones on top of some pieces?
Oh yeah, actually, yeah.
Bang down the strawberries quick.
We're just going to put a couple of rocks on, hopefully temporarily. Yeah, we can get rid of that.
Hey Vince, where's the container? Okay.
High quality cereal for strawberry.
Contingency. Yeah, so this is just a temporary measure, but I'm a bit worried about the wood floating still, so better safe than sorry. And we can take them out later. But I know it does look a bit weird right now. But that's a bit weird than float. Okay, and then is there a
Instagram's gonna go wild when they see you use the colander again. I know, right?
There we go.
2.0.
Any more Q&As?
I guess obviously you're not doing any moss in this tank.
No.
Any reason for that? Or?
Yeah, moss is a dirt trap, and because of the food, it's just going to get loads of food trapped in the moss. So yeah, just it'll be a nightmare to keep long term.
Do you use moss in any of your scapes anymore?
Yeah, I've got some Physidins and or Phoenix moss, and I've got a current one.
Yeah.
I've never been a moss heavy scaper. I do love a really nice moss tank though. It's so like ancient feeling and really like Jurassic kind of thing.
I think nothing replaces it when it comes to detailing trees and branches.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you could use Monte Carlo and HTQ, but it's not the same effect.
No. And you know, it's the more kind of smaller textured plants we have in here, the more opportunities there are for waste to build up. So we've got quite bold, dominant, sort of flat textures here. So with a good filter, you know, relentless kind of maintenance, you should be able to keep it really clean and tidy without much algae build up. But I just do recommend those frequent water changes.
In regards to your home aquariums, where do you find your inspiration for your next tank, your next project? Where do you get that?
It depends. My home tank is very much driven by what plants I kind of want to play with. Sometimes there's like a business requirement, so I'll have to showcase a certain thing. So it's driven by that, but that's not so much the case anymore. But I always go back to my core kind of value and my kind of core taste, which is classic, what I call classic nature aquarium style. And if you look at any of Amano's works from like the late 90s to, you know, sort of 2005, 10, yeah, so like a 12-year period, his work is just, in my opinion, is best, and that's kind of where I get most of my inspiration from. Yeah. I get inspired by fish as well now, so I see a fish and I think, well, how can I set up an escape to make that fish look the best, behave the best? Not necessarily a strict biotope, but something that's very compatible, visually and practically.
So you really essentially, you start off with the plants and then you kind of go from there.
I come up with the story, come up with the concept or an overall, how do I want this aquascape to make me feel? So, and that sounds quite weird, but in broad respects, without nature aquarium, you can have like Zen Style or Wild Style. There's a great video on this by Josh Sim on the Green Aqua channel. And Zen Style, if you just a classic example of Zen Style would be a minimalist iwagumi, so white sand, 3 rocks, hair grass, tall hair grass in the background. That's kind of Zen Style. And that was actually my best performing aquascape in the IOPLC, which is exactly that, pure Zen Style. And then you've got Wild Style, which, the opposites of that is like loads of moss, loads of epiphytes, quite dark, kind of low-key photography. The opposite was bright, Zen, minimalist, pure white, pure bright greens, tight shoulder cardinal tetras. You've got the Zen Style, which would be, like I say, overhanging roots, dripping moss, loads of like cool epiphytes, real cave kind of Jurassic ancient feel. They're at each end of a spectrum, and then you decide like, how do I want to be like Zen and like pure minimalist, and you're completely open to loads more. It's so minimalist, it's every little thing stands out. You know what I mean? So it's very, it's like a pure form of aquascaping. That's what Zen is. It's like minimalism. It's like nothing. So the opposite for me is like the Wild Style, where you've got so much different species of plants. There's so much biomass there, and it's so complex. There's so much more room for forgiveness, because if one little bit of moss looks odd, it doesn't matter, because everything kind of looks odd. So it's like it's the yin and yang. It's the wabi sabi of aquascaping. You've got this pure Zen, and you've got this crazy, chaotic wild. And where do you align yourself with on that spectrum? And then your work, your creation should reflect that, maybe where you are on that spectrum of how you want to enjoy aquascaping. That's just one way of understanding maybe your own style, or where you want to take your own thing. But me, always inspired by Amano, his work. That's what really changed my life. When I opened up that first book, I was just like, wow, and I could feel the neurons in my brain just firing off. This is like an epiphany. This is what I want to take my hobby. This makes me feel at home, and this is why I love what I do, because it just brings you closer to home, whatever that is. But yeah, so it's a beautiful hobby. It's so multifaceted. If you're a real geek in the technology side of things, you can go crazy on like understanding lighting, hydrodynamics with water flow and circulation, chemistry with the liquid fertilizers, the soil, the hardscape interaction. You can buy test kits and do your, all that fun stuff. Or you can be completely the opposite. You can just be in tune with the art and the creativity. And how does this make me feel? And I've got this crazy idea about using this plant in a certain way. And you might be somewhere in between. You might not even know where you are in that level of where you want to take your hobby. But maybe whatever direction you want to take it, I think aquascaping has the ability to teach us about ourselves, really, and connecting with something that's just quite magical, I'd say. So magical, this gravel is like stops. So who's going to the Pet Expo this weekend? Yeah? Nice with you? It's good. I'll be there doing a couple of workshops, and there's a live contest. Anyone going to that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Look at that. We're all there.
You're judging tomorrow too, right, George?
Apparently, yeah. Yeah, I am, yeah. But it's not about judging. I talked about judging contests at the beginning in a different way, but this is the debut, show for aquariums in Canada. And, they've taken a lot on, organising a live event, which is, for the most experienced of organisers, a challenge, from my own kind of working with people. So, hats off to the guys at the Canadian Pet Expo for putting it on, for Fluval for supporting it, and for you guys for supporting. For me, the most important thing is to support Aquascape, as a concept for people, because this is a perfect opportunity. There'll be people at that expo that will have never been exposed to aquascaping. They probably know what an aquarium is, but they'll have never associated what we've created here today with an aquarium. It's just not in their consciousness because they're not aware of it. There's nothing wrong with that. They just haven't been shown the information, and that's why things like the Pet Expo this weekend and then today in the workshop and all of these live community events are so important, because we have the opportunity to connect a new audience, a new load of humans, to something deeply beautiful and deeply therapeutic and deeply connecting. And it's through things like looking after this that makes me make different life choices. I understand where my plants come from and the amount of CO2 that stuff is being used to produce a lot of the stuff that we're playing with. So you can make informed choices. Like if you understand fully where the fish come from, you can then maybe understand that some fish and some plants have been over harvested for our greens basically, and completely decimated these natural habitats. So if with that information now you know that maybe you shouldn't be buying that plant because that's contributing to that negative energy that's going on so much in this world. Wow, sorry about that.
Are there any fish out there that you would say to avoid because of sustainability?
No, I'm not going to say anything. Not on camera.
So George,
how do you know when to stop planting? Like here you have a lot of empty space, you've got this big trunk in the right side of the tank, there's nothing inside it on the top of it.
Yeah.
How do you decide?
You work with the materials that you've got, but you also bear in mind that these swords are just going to completely fill up the back there. So any planting where you said it was missing is just going to be dominated anyway. So, this comes with experience, but when you understand how the plant will grow when it's mature, how it's going to take up the space, you know where to plant and where not to plant. So there's something that you can research, but the best way is just to try. Yeah.
So what kind of fertilizer would you recommend, liquid fertilizer?
In here, you're going to go quite lean because it's not so much fast plant growth.
Yeah.
The Amazon swords. The Amazon swords will take up a lot of nutrients. Is there a peg or something that you can grip? So fertilizer, what do you use? What do
We
you
use 2-hour Aquarius.
Yeah.
For all of our high techs.
Yeah.
And for the low techs, we used to use Tropica.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That 2-hour Aqua stuff's very good.
Yeah.
But the good news is with these soils now, you give a lot more wiggle room for fertiliser because they take a lot of the nutrients through the soil. Probably start priming the filter now actually. So this is a good test to see how easy it is. Is that the output hose?
Yeah.
Yeah? Is that the output?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've done it before and then been the wrong way round. Like water pumping out of the inlet destroys the aquascape. So it's always good to check. You can see we've got some of the nasty, so we can use our special tool.
So George, given your experience with aquascaping so far,
Yeah.
what do you think is the next thing you kind of want to achieve in terms of either like goals in the hobby overall as well as it within your scapes?
I try not to like set myself too many specific goals these days. I'd like to kind of get into a bit more wellness stuff and using aquascaping to kind of make people more aware of how important wellness is, about mental health especially. Neurodivergent issues, which I'm learning more about. And I think aquascaping has so many sort of crossovers with wellness in general, physically and mentally and spiritually and emotionally. And because that's where the majority of my experience in life is now is with aquascaping. I feel that it's like a natural evolution for me to use my gifts, if you like, of communicating aquascaping, but maybe using them in a more, I don't know. I guess I want people to feel well, and help people feel well, and I think I can help that a lot with aquascaping. So it's deciding the path to carry on promoting aquascaping like I do, but to reach the most amount of people and to create the most amount of benefit for them. So that's, there's so many different choices I have. I could carry on with the podcast. I get a lot of encouragement to do that. I could write another book. Well, I'm helping out Ty with their book at the moment. I could really go full bore on YouTube, which I'm kind of doing quite a lot on YouTube at the moment. I'd really like to see aquascaping on mainstream TV, and how that's represented I'm not sure. I've had experience of being on TV before with aquascaping and mainstream media in general, like newspapers and things like that, and it hasn't always been entirely positive. So I'm mindful of almost selling my soul, if you like, to a big TV network. I'm not saying that would ever come, but I'd have to do a lot of soul searching to determine how I'd like aquascaping to be communicated. And that sounds really egoic, because who am I to determine how aquascaping should be portrayed? But I don't think I want to make it like a mindless entertainment show. I want people to understand aquascaping for something a bit sort of deeper and more, dare I say, spiritual. And connecting people with, the nature. And because at the end of the day, we're really, we're doing probably more harm to the planet and to each other, than we ever have been. And so, if aquascaping can in some way, just shine a little bit of light in a world full of quite a lot of darkness, that's where I want to put my energy into shining the light, basically. Okay. On that note, the tank's full. Thank you, mate. The filter's primed, I guess. So is it a case of, have we got power ready to rock?
It's a smart plug, so I can turn it on whenever you're ready.
Yeah, go for it. Let's see. Well, we've got a net, so just to net the soil off before we turn it on.
Nope.
Just going to fly around and sink on the camera.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, thank you, mate.
Right. Gonna turn it on.
Yeah, not yet. Oh, this is going to sink to the sound otherwise. Everyone had a good time?
Yeah.
Yes. Do you now think about aquascaping in a slightly different way than before this workshop, maybe? Would you? No? Okay.
I was going to say, I didn't realize how mindful you are when you do these types of things, but it is nice to see that, because I know when I have dinner and I'm looking at my aquarium, there's that piece that you want to sit there maybe for an extra 10 or 20 minutes when you're done eating.
Yeah.
And just look at what you created and watch everything interact in that ecosystem. So it's really enjoyable to share with other people.
Oh, yeah. I think the key lesson there is when you are sitting with your aquarium. Thank you for the reminder. Don't judge yet. Yeah, it's really hard to do because we're programmed to judge. It's like we're a survival-based creature. We're always looking for threats. And a threat is like algae. So just try to sit there in no judgment of your aquariums. Accept the fact there's always something to improve on, and it will never be perfect because perfect is just an illusion anyway. So just sit there next time maybe and just enjoy it for what it is. Enjoy it for its imperfections, and just don't judge it. Which is ironic because I'm going to be doing loads of judging this weekend. There's a paradox for you. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. You can set the filter now.
Okay.
Yeah. Hopefully it's going to work. No dramas.
Do you hear anything, Vince? Happening below?
No.
Nope. Roll it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It started. This time.
Nope. Oh, here we go. That's just fun. Yeah.
No, it's still not on.
Smart plugs.
I've got no smart plug, just literally plug-in timers. Plug-in timers and switches.
Sorry, it's not plugged in.
Turn it off and on again.
Oh, it's just not plugged in yet.
I look forward to seeing some of you at Pet Expo this weekend. I'm doing a couple of workshops, so you'll be fed up with my voice by the end of the same old stories. Oh, George is rambling on about mindfulness again. There we go. Perfect. Oh, wow.
Plastic.
Someone grabbed it. Okay, you're going to be really risky.
I think it'll stay.
You're good.
Oh yeah, I didn't even move.
Come back.
Come back to me. Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
gonna say.
See you later. Cheerio. Moving?
Nope.
You're good.
All right. Nice.
It's going to remove the sleeve because it's a bit spilt blue on it.
Signature.
Oh, I'll leave it there, man. There we go. But yeah, simple state, perfect for discus. I think.
What do you recommend we keep the heat at? 82?
Yeah, 82. And they'll come towards the front. They've got the white sand to bring out the colour.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Any questions?
It's gorgeous. You said 5 or 10% 4 or 5 hours a day, yeah?
Yeah, quite a bit, sort of about here.
Yeah.
And then maybe 10%.
Sure. Do you want to see what that looks like now, or just leave it for the video? Because it's going to be quite.
Yeah. The video will adjust automatically. Try it now.
Okay, yeah. I think it might be difficult. I'll do it another day. Yeah, I gotta open it and stuff. Well, I gotta update the app first.
Oh, don't worry. Just leave it for now. Yeah.
It's updating.
There we go.
It's a party.
I was going to say, it's like
Brand new meeting to Green Aqua.
anyone going to Aquascape Chicago?
Really hope to.
No.
Should do. I'll be there.
So you're flying home and then flying back again for Chicago?
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a busy time actually.
Busy
next few
flight.
weeks. And then Denmark again.
Oh, okay.
And then I'm going to Florence for my daughter's 18th birthday. Her name's Florence in Italy.
Oh, okay.
So we're going there.
Cool.
That's nice. Is that 10%?
That's 10%.
Yeah, that's nice. It's quite. Yeah, I think that'd be okay.
Still good for our display when customers are coming in and whatnot.
Yeah, back screen looks good.
What's your opinion actually on starting your aquarium? Do you dark start? Do you dry start? Nothing like that. Just
Just
normal.
full normal wet start, big water changes. Enjoy the aquarium full of water.
I hear
It's
you.
dry starts and dark starts. I understand the theory.
Yeah.
That's great, but you're not enjoying the aquarium. And you kind of, in my mind, I like that initial process of getting your hands dirty, figuring out what's going wrong, what's going right, making those micro adjustments.
Yeah.
You know, and by the time you've done a dark start or a dry start, if you've done a wet start, by the time those other two things are finished, you've got almost like a full aquarium, and you've enjoyed that journey.
Sure enough.
In that time.
Yeah. You know? It's wasted time, you're saying.
Yeah.
To enjoy it.
Yeah, wasted sounds a bit negative, but yeah.
Well, I can see that. When people dark start, they cover the entire thing for 3 weeks, right?
I mean, it's wasted to one man is a different note, because he or she who's done the dark start, it's given them more time to do something else of equal value, maybe. If they're offsetting that happiness or the joy of that aquarium just because they want to have an easier journey, I don't think that's not an approach I would take.
I hear you.
Personally, but I'm not dissing people that are into the DSM.
For the most part, I do recommend like my beginners that come to my store to do the dark start method, because if you do this method wrong, you end up losing plants, and that's money wasted.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's a
For
fair
the most
point.
part. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got to balance it, haven't you, with giving the customers the best chance of success.
That's right.
Yeah, and I think that should be maybe on a customer by customer, individual basis, because some customers will be very content with taking that risk and going in. Others might be a bit more conservative, maybe on a tighter budget, and then maybe a dark start is more appropriate, and it does teach them patience, maybe. So, yeah, and maybe I'm going down dark start route now. Yeah. So yeah, thank you everyone for coming. It's been a great workshop, very intimate, very warm. I hope that's so uncomfortable for you guys. I hope you learned some stuff. We didn't go necessarily too technical on the plants and how to actually aquascape, but hopefully gives you a bit more thoughts on why you might want to aquascape and how to enjoy your aquascape in a different way. So think about those things. You know, when you're maintaining the tank, do it mindfully. You know, don't give your thoughts up to the future or the past. Just think about what beautiful thing you're working with and how privileged we are. You know, it's the ultimate luxury, really, what we're doing. You know, we're creating nature. So, yeah, you should just be grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming by, George. I really, and I'm sure most of us have really appreciated your thought process on creating the tank, and how you went about to do it, and not only your thought process, but your, I guess, ideology behind the whole aquascaping journey, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure all of us appreciate your time here. We can't wait for other YouTube videos that come out from you.
Yeah, I've got a couple in the pipeline.
That's it.
Yeah.
If you haven't watched the video today, make sure you do, George. Other than that, thank you guys for coming out. I know some of you aren't coming to dinner, but shortly after we clean up, we're going to be heading down the street 5 minutes away to Fire Hall. If you guys can come to dinner, hopefully you guys can. It'd be great. So, yeah.
We'll stay open for another hour for shopping.
Sure, right. Some of you guys want to shop too. So
Don't forget to buy.
we're just gonna clean up the chairs,
Don't
and
forget
you
to
guys
buy
can
stuff.
browse
They need
around.
to buy. You need to buy stuff. This is a shop, so you need to buy stuff. I hope you like being on YouTube, by the way. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hit the like; it really helps the algorithm, and then share it. It helps the algorithm even more. But more than important than that, it helps to spread the beautiful world of aquascaping. Cheers for the quite green aqua.